All right. Good morning, everybody. Uh, as everyone can see in the title, we're going to be talking about Tyson Fury versus Dillian White. And obviously, everyone knows the fight is now signed. It's going to be scheduled for April. With that being said, though, you know, as it is always in boxing on YouTube, people are choosing a side. There's always a division. There's the Tyson Fury crowd, and there's the Dillian White crowd. Is Tyson Fury going to actually go through with the fight? Is he talking trash just because he's nervous, because he's rattled? Is Dillian White being obstinate here and stating that he's not going to help promote the fight? People are critical of the fact that Dillian White possibly, or to my knowledge, is not getting a share of the pay-per-view revenue. And obviously, to me, that's understandable because if it's a purse bid, it's a standard purse bid contract, then the two sides divide up what the bid is percentage wise, and that's it. And Dillian White put himself in a situation where this contract had to be a purse bid contract because he forced it to go to purse bids because he was not going to accept the original deal. Now, if he does win the fight, he will get an additional $4 million. So he'll get upwards of $11.3 million if he wins the fight. If he doesn't, then he'll get $7.3 million. I guess the original offer was somewhere along the lines of five and a half, 6 million. And Bob Arum had said he was willing to give Dillian White a share of the pay-per-view upside as well. I'm speculating roughly about 20% of that. So is this a better situation for Dillian White? In my opinion, if he took the smaller guarantee and he was going to get back end money on top of that, win or lose, I think that would have been the more lucrative decision. But that's just my opinion. I could be wrong, and we can debate that. But regardless of all that, that doesn't matter. The fight is going to happen. But even with this fight happening, there's still a lot of skepticism on whether or not Fury's going to actually show up. Um, you know, is there going to be issues? Because there seems to always be issues when Fury is involved in a fight, whether it be him pulling out or a postponement. There's a history of that. And Dillian White has pulled out of fights as well. So both of these guys do have a checkered past, but Fury is being criticized more here for his checkered past. But let's talk about the whole situation with Dillian White allegedly not going out of his way to promote this fight. And Eddie Hearn was talking about it. And he basically said, well, he's not going to go out of his way to travel, put himself in danger where he can get COVID. And I get that, but I'm sure there's other ways he could promote the fight. He could be on shows uh, via Skype or via satellite, whatever. He doesn't have to actually be in a studio to do interviews or do shows with ESPN, Max Kellerman, Max on Boxing. He could be on location and they could Skype him in, or they could, just put him in via satellite or whatever. It's possible he could do stuff like that. So I get Eddie Hearn saying that he doesn't want to travel, put himself at risk to get COVID. I get all that. Doing the extensive touring and doing an excessive amount of media appearances where he's going to be in crowds and stuff of that nature. I get all that, but the whole thing of just kind of sitting on your hands and not doing anything because you're not going to get any extra money by doing that. But Eric, my co-host, made a great point. It's like you're not only just promoting the fight, you're promoting yourself, you're promoting your brand. So this is the perfect opportunity for Dillian White to put himself out there to the American public and get a following, because a lot of people, because of Tyson Fury's trilogy with Deontay Wilder, because of the press he did, because of how that was so well promoted, in my opinion, how he was doing appearances, he was on a lot of shows, him being on Rogan, him being on Max's show extensively, him showing up to events like football games and stuff, and just being out there, and the whole WWE thing he did. A lot of people know Tyson Fury more so now than they did before that Deontay Wilder trilogy, and that was because of him being out there, him promoting himself, him making appearances. So it did definitely help increase his brand and his popularity in the United States. Now, Dillian Whyte will be on, a U.S. based pay-per-view, right? He'll be on ESPN pay-per-view, not only in the pay-per-view in the UK with BT Sport, but he'll be on the ESPN pay-per-view platform as well. So why not give yourself that added exposure, right? And then the whole thing about Eddie Hearn being asked about if he's going to be involved in the fight. Well, obviously he's not going to be directly involved in the fight, but he does have a working relationship with Dillian Whyte, and he does consider Dillian Whyte a friend, right? And if Dillian Whyte were to win the fight, then Eddie Hearn would be back promoting or working with Dillian Whyte. So why would Eddie Hearn not want to try to enhance Dillian Whyte's profile via this fight? Why would he not want to talk up this fight? Why would he not? And he is talking about the fight a lot in interviews. But why would he not retweet stuff about the event? Why would he not, help out on behalf of Dillian Whyte? Doesn't have to help Fury, but why not help out the event on behalf of Dillian Whyte? Because that's your guy. So you don't have to go out of your way and spend money and, take away from the events you're doing right now. But there's things that you could still do to help push your guy. It's the same thing with Kell Brook. The whole Kell Brook Amir Khan thing, he was criticized, and people were saying, well, why didn't you help out? Why didn't you talk about the event? Why didn't you do this, do that, and the third? Again, no one's asking you to put money into it. No one's asking you to go out of your way and take time away from your events to promote someone else's events. But once again, Kell Brook, guy you had a working relationship with, a guy who could be a potential opponent for Conor Benn, why not say, hey, yeah, talk about the fight, tweet, tweet things about the fight. Every little bit helps, because again, the winner of that fight would be a potential opponent for your guy, Conor Benn, which is another big fight in the UK. So this is all about not biting off your nose to spite the rest of your face because you're upset with the situation. Because a lot of times, we're all guilty of this. We put our personal opinions or our personal feelings over what would be the better, more logical decision, whether it be from a business standpoint or, a longevity standpoint, looking down the road, not being short-sighted. So this is the perfect opportunity for Dillian Whyte to expose himself to an American audience and just expand his brand, right? So the whole thing about not wanting to help out and promote the event, well again, you probably won't be getting pay-per-view upside. You won't be getting pay-per-view upside because you forced this fight to go to purse bids, and a standard purse bid contract is not going to require, or Bob Arum's not going to give you the pay-per-view upside because he's not required to do that. He gave you it's a standard purse bid contract, and whatever deal he has with Fury, he promotes Fury, and so does Frank Warren. So they're going to take care of Fury. They're not going to go out of their way to take care of you because you forced the fight to go to purse bid. You forced the fight to go to arbitration, right? You sued the WBC. So again, all these people aren't going to go out of their way to help you because you made things difficult for all those other parties involved. I'm not saying that you weren't right or wrong in your stance, but again, sometimes you have to look at the situation and you have to say to yourself, what is the benefit of me doing what I did, right? Regardless, of whether or not he waited so long, which I believe they did drag it out for him. He should have gotten a title shot much sooner. We all agree on that, most of us, right? And we all agree how the WBC was kind of stringing him along. We all agree how Deontay Wilder was stringing him along. We all, and to some degree, Fury just, made his first title defense. So credit to Fury, he is going to fight him. But people were saying that Fury didn't want to fight him. He was going to try to avoid him. And Fury, by his own words, didn't sound too enthusiastic about fighting Dillian Whyte. He was very dismissive of fighting Dillian Whyte, and that's fine. But at the end of the day, he is going to fight him now. And since he's become champion, when you look at the time that it took for him to fight Dillian Whyte compared to Deontay Wilder, who never fought him after being champion for so long, like no one else fought Dillian Whyte as champion, so that, Tyson Fury is going to fight him. So, it is what it is. Now, whether or not people are saying he can still pull out, he doesn't want to fight. Listen, if he didn't want to fight, then they wouldn't have put $41 million up to get the fight. He's going to be getting a gigantic payday, the biggest payday of his career. When you add in the pay-per-view upside, he's going to get a guarantee of like $31 million. Then if he wins, he's going to get that extra. So it's like a $35 million guarantee. And then all the pay-per-view upside. He can make upwards of $40 to $45 million for this fight. So again, the people saying that he doesn't want this fight now with all these added benefits, then I don't know. I don't agree with that. Now, could something happen? Could someone get COVID? I mean, Fury got COVID twice, so the chances of him getting it a third time, I don't know. Supposedly, I don't know if he's vaccinated now, whatever. I believe Dillian Whyte is fully vaccinated, but you can still get it. So I understand Dillian Whyte's being cautious about not wanting to go out and put himself in harm's way to get COVID. I get all that. But again, there's other ways you can help promote the event and in turn promote yourself, enhance your own brand, as I said earlier. So, Eddie Hearn being very critical of the other side and not going out of his way. To me, Eddie Hearn is taking the stance that he's taking is because he's not involved in the event. It's almost like he's rooting for the event to not do well. So then he can turn around and say, well, see, if I was involved in this event, it would have done better. And that's just my opinion. I'm not saying that's factual. You can say, B, well, that's your opinion. How do you know that? Blah, 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 blah. But Eddie Hearn has a history of just always trashing everyone else's event if he's not involved in it. Even this whole thing with Brooke and Khan, saying that the pay-per-view numbers weren't what they had forecast or what they expected. And he turned around and was jokingly saying, well, if I was involved, they would have done much better. And then he says, I'm kidding. But then afterwards he says, well, I'm really not. So at the end of the day, Eddie Hearn is a competitive person, right? And I get that. But he does go out of his way to criticize other people's events, more so than many other promoters. So there is a sense of competitiveness here, and Eddie Hearn wanting to be able to say, well, if I promoted this fight, it would have done so much better. And then, Eddie Hearn has been out hustled lately with these purse bids. He lost the Andre Zach Parker purse bid. He lost this purse bid. And then people are saying, well, he's slipping, but at the end of the day, Eddie Hearn is focusing on Canelo Alvarez right now and Anthony Joshua. He's putting a lot of the money that he's gotten from DAZN. He's putting and investing in those two fighters, in my opinion. Canelo Alvarez, obviously the potential with him to do huge numbers is always there. Same thing with Joshua. And even if Joshua loses to Usyk, he can turn around and still work with Canelo, whether it be for, these 1 or 2 fight deals that he's been doing. They have a great working relationship. And this whole thing about the PBC offer, I still am skeptical if that offer was even real for Canelo. No one from that side confirmed it, where Eddie Hearn came out and said, yes, we are actively negotiating and trying to get this 2-fight deal done for Canelo. So all this shit about, this PBC information, a lot of that to me is just propaganda. It's clout chasing. It's name dropping. There's one guy over there that feeds Mike Coppinger information, right? In my opinion, and he usually feeds everyone information. And the reason why he does that is because he's trying to get his fighters' names, like Charlo, Benavidez, trying to put their names in the headlines. So now articles will be written about them, and it's just there to help promote their fighters and enhance their fighters. And it always happens more so than not when those fighters are fighting somebody else, and they're just putting their names out there to help promote the fighter and help promote the fight that they're involved in. So a lot of it to me is just clout chasing. It's just name dropping. And, it's all bullshit. So you can take from it what you want. You can believe what you want. I'm just giving you my opinion. And I always stress the words, my opinion, because obviously that's what we're here for. We're here to give our opinions on what we believe. So yeah, that's the thing. I mean, there's still a lot of negativity. There's still a lot of skepticism surrounding this event. Still people trying to play the blame game. Dillian Whyte was silenced because, again, the fight wasn't signed. He was probably advised to not talk about anything until the fight was signed. Why go out there and talk, maybe say the wrong thing, whatever. Now the fight is signed, so now he's going to talk. But again, too, we all know that, Tyson Fury's game is to talk trash. It is to try to get in people's heads. He does try to bait and goad people into these verbal confrontations because that's his game, and he's usually the guy who's always on the winning end of that when it comes to those verbal skirmishes. So Dillian Whyte is saying to himself, "Why am I going to fight his fight? Why am I going to play his game? I'll just lie back, and I'm not going to give him the satisfaction of giving him a response." So this whole thing about Dillian Whyte not talking, being silent, I didn't put too much stock into that. I said from the beginning I was very confident he was going to sign the contract because at the end of the day, this is the best opportunity for him. If Joshua loses, would Usyk fight him? Fury would end up fighting Usyk before Whyte would fight Usyk. So the options were slim for Dillian Whyte if he was to turn this down. And, he's turned down a title fight before. So would there have been more opportunities? This was kind of like his backup was up against the wall. If he didn't take this fight, then there was not much else out there for him. Whereas for Fury, there was definitely other options. And again, he has the title. So he has a lot more options. Dillian Whyte, I'm sure if he passed on this, the WBC would probably not give him another mandatory slot, because after all this time of waiting, if he was to pass on this and then, passed on the AJ fight way back when, before, AJ fought Ruiz, that's 2 times there, right? And there's been issues of him not wanting to fight eliminators for the WBC. So like I said, the WBC and Top Rank and Frank Warren over at Queensberry, they're not going to go out of their way to do Dillian Whyte any favors because he's not made things easy for them. It's been very confrontational with all the parties involved. So to expect those other parties to go out of their way to do anything that's going to benefit you, it is what it is. And this whole stance, like I know people are saying, well, why should he promote the fight? Why should he? Because again, he's involved in it. Promote yourself, promote your brand, make yourself become more popular. Get people to invest in you. Get some sponsors, get some advertisers. Put some stuff on your trunks. Go out there and enhance your brand. There's other ways to make money through this fight. By making yourself popular, by putting yourself out there, by increasing your profile and expanding upon your brand. So you're not by doing nothing, you're not only hurting the event, you're hurting yourself, in my opinion. And Eddie Hearn, again, if you believe your guy's going to win, then if he does win, you have a mega fight to make with the winner of Joshua versus Usyk. So why not talk up your guy? Why not push this event, try to make it as big as you can, because you're the guy that you work with, the guy that you've had a long-standing working relationship with, is involved in this fight. So why would you not want to try to enhance this fight for the sake of the guy who you've worked with over the years? So again, everyone involved here, Eddie Hearn, Dillian Whyte, everyone has a vested interest in this event. And I know Eddie Hearn, again, my opinion, wants this event to fail so he can turn around and say, well, see, I told you, if I was doing it, it would have done better. And again, this is all about competition. I understand it, but in my opinion, when you look at it, it's just a lot of, the case of being short-sighted. Because if you're looking at the long game here, it makes a lot of sense for Whyte to put himself out there to help himself, for Eddie Hearn to do what he can to help this event for the sake of Dillian Whyte. Because if Dillian Whyte wins, then if his profile is enhanced, then a future fight that Eddie Hearn would make with Joshua or possibly Usyk would be that much bigger. So you got to look at the long game here. I know it's hard sometimes for people to look ahead because they're so concerned about what's going on in front of them, and boxing is full of people who have ego problems. We all have ego problems, right? And a lot of times, like I said, we put our ego before what is the more logical, more business savvy thing to do. And we can't look too far ahead, a lot of us, because we're so concerned about what's directly in front of us. But if you are, looking ahead, if you're Dillian Whyte and Eddie Hearn, then it makes a lot of sense to try to root for this event to do well, and do everything you can to make this event do well for the sake of yourselves. And that just makes a lot of sense to me. That's just my opinion, and that's just how I feel about it. So the whole thing about Dillian Whyte not getting what he's supposed to get, well, to me, I blame that on him, right? I blame that on him because he's the reason why this fight went to purse bids. So you guaranteed you basically guaranteed yourself no pay-per-view revenue, because standard purse bid contract does not require them to give you pay-per-view revenue. It only requires them to give you a percentage of what the bid was, right? So right then and there, you put yourself in a situation where you have no option to get any pay-per-view revenue, right? So that it is what it is, And you can complain that you had to wait a long time, but you actually made the process longer by forcing it to go to purse bids and having the purse bid being delayed, and then the arbitration, and then suing the WBC. And I understand, and you felt as though you were right in your situation, but at the end of the day, after all that, in my opinion, did you really enhance your position? Did you really get yourself a better deal? To me, you ended up making less than you would have gotten, because again, they were going to offer you 6 million, 5.5, 6 million, right? So yeah, you're getting a million, 1.3 million more than you were offered in terms of the guarantee, right? And you could get an additional 4 million if you win, but if you lose, you get your 7.3 and you go home, right? Whereas if you took the 5.5 or 6 million and you got a 20% percentage of the pay-per-view revenue from the US and the UK, then you could have made a lot more money. You had the potential to earn a lot more money, in my opinion. That's just my stance on it. So did you really put yourself in a situation where you give yourself the best opportunity to make the most you could make out of this fight? In my opinion, I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no. Right? I'm going to say no because Bob Arum said that he was willing to give you a portion. He said we could talk about it, but like before the fight went to purse bid, he did say, we could talk about, you know, pay-per-view upside. He was willing to discuss that. All right. So if you got 20% of the pay-per-view upside, say the fight does, I don't know. I think it has the potential to do 1 million pay-per-view buys over there in the UK. I think it'll at bare minimum do 300,000 here. Right. So if you were to get a percentage of that, I mean, that's, to me, that would be a lot more than $4 million in my opinion. I could be wrong, but I mean, I'm just saying. So if it does, so say it does, let's just say for the sake of argument, it does 800,000 pay-per-view buys over there at like $30 a pop. I don't know how much the broadcasters get over there, but let's just say they divide. Let's just say, I don't know, but let's just say they were to get half of that 24 million in the revenue, right? Or even, yeah, let's just say they would get half. So you divide that by 2, it's 12 million left over. So you times that by 20%, that's 2.4 million, right? Plus, you're 5.5 million, right? So that would be $8 million right there, right? Which would, now let's just say, for the sake of argument, I think it'll do 300,000 pay-per-view buys over here, right? So say you were going to get a percentage of that too. If you were to negotiate that into your deal, times that by 80. And you divide that by 2. There's 15 left over. So then you get 20% of that. That's another 3.190, right? In pay-per-view revenue, right? Plus the 2.4. So you have the potential to make, $5.6 million in back-end money, plus your 7.3 million. So you had the potential to make basically $12,890,000. And I'm being conservative here with the numbers. I could be off a little bit here, but now, you're only going to make, if you win, 11.3, right? So you take that 11.3. So, you're leaving almost $1.6 million on the table if you were to get pay-per-view upside, right? But if you lose, then you get 7. That would have been win or lose. Now, if you lose the fight, you're leaving $5.6 million on the table. So I think by doing what he did, I don't think he put himself in a situation to make the most amount of money that he could have. I think he left money on the table. I think he would have gotten. Also, the UK broadcaster only takes 25% of the revenue. So again, he could have made a lot more. Could have made a lot more. And again, this whole thing about Whyte being a bad style matchup, to me, his style is very similar to Derek Chisero's. Maybe I would say he probably hits harder than Chisora, but they have a very similar style. And we saw what Fury did to Chisora both times. Little Penny, welcome here, man. Good morning. What's your take on this whole situation? Do you think Dillian Whyte actually put himself in the best situation by allowing this fight to go to purse bids? Do you think he put himself in the best situation to make the most amount of money that he could have? I don't think he did. I think that he could have negotiated for some pay-per-view upside if he was willing to take the lower guarantee. But now that the fight went to purse bids, and now that the WBC only gave him 20% of that purse bid, I think that he left money on the table. What's your opinion?
Yeah, I agree, Beebs. Because wasn't the initial offer from Top Rank, wasn't that 5 million plus upside on pay-per-view?
Well, it was 5.5 million, and Bob Arum said that he was willing to go to 6, and then they were talking about giving him 20 to 25% of the. It wasn't confirmed, but they were discussing giving him an upside, right? They were discussing giving him, but now that it goes to purse bids, they're under no obligation to give him any pay-per-view upside. It's a standard base purse bid contract. So this whole thing about people saying, "Oh, well, they fucked him over," no, he kind of fucked himself over by forcing the fight to go to purse bids. What he should have done was say, "Okay, I'll take 6 million. Give me 25% of the pay-per-view upside from the US and the UK." And I think they would have been okay with that.
Because Beebs, in the UK, this pay-per-view will sell.
Let me ask you this, because it's going to be in prime time over there in the UK.
Yeah.
Is it crazy for me to forecast this fight doing bare minimum 800,000 buys over in the UK?
Yeah, I agree.
Could it do 1 million?
Yeah, because Beebs, sometimes when a big fight is in America and it's like 3-4 o'clock in the morning in Britain when everyone is still sleeping, sometimes they do 8-7. Like I think the Pacquiao Hatton one did, I think that did like 950 in the UK at 3-4 o'clock in the morning. So when it's prime time, like I don't know if you remember, but when it was prime time in England, the AJ versus Klitschko fight, didn't they do 2 million pay-per-view buys?
That was the record. And then that got broken by Mayweather McGregor. Actually, Mayweather McGregor had the highest UK pay-per-view buys before, after that. And then when Joshua fought Ruiz too, that is now the record in the UK for pay-per-views.
Yeah.
And everyone was talking. Everyone was saying, "Oh, who's Ruiz? Who's Ruiz? Who's Ruiz?" And I understand that, but when you talk about what a guy's done prior and how big his profile is, that sometimes is irrelevant, and a lot of times is irrelevant because you have to look at the event itself. When you put two guys together, it doesn't matter what the other guy did or what this guy did. If you put two guys together and people are interested in seeing those two guys, see, Ruiz was the champion. Now people were tuning in to see if he was a one-hit wonder, if he was a fluke, and if Joshua was done. There was a big storyline behind that fight. So the whole thing about, oh, well, what did this guy do? Who's this? He could say that he is one half of the UK pay-per-view revenue record because that fight sold more pay-per-views than Klitschko versus Joshua. Now, let me ask you this. Who's more popular? Who has a bigger name, Klitschko or Andy Ruiz? Obviously, Klitschko does. But because of the circumstances surrounding that event and the story behind that event, that sold. Now, there's some drama behind this event over in the UK, right? These guys have a history. They don't like each other. For Dillian Whyte to not do I think that him saying that is a bluff. I think he will promote the event. That's just my opinion. But the notion of him saying that and people believing it, and even if that were hypothetically going to be true, that would make no sense to do that because, again, it just you want this event to do well for the sake of your own profile, not just for the sake of the event. But go ahead.
And Bibbs, it's a Wembley Stadium fight too, which will probably be sold out, which gives it even more ambiance per se.
Yeah, and then if people are looking at Dillian Whyte for potential sponsorships and stuff like that, there's so many ways he can make money off of this event without getting it from Top Rank or Queensberry, right?
Yeah, and Bibbs, he's also got, even if he loses, right, Dillian Whyte, he still has that rematch like with AJ, which is kind of like a big fight too. You know what I mean?
If AJ loses and Dillian Whyte loses, like you said, they could still be that UK fight.
Yeah, that's a
Just like the Brooke Khan fight,
yeah.
still there was a lot of demand for that fight. There could still be a lot of demand for that.
Hey, Beats, because we've been a week already. Do you know what the pay-per-view numbers were in the UK for the Khan Brook fight? Do you know?
I don't know, but I guess they were saying that they were, even Adam Smith confirmed that they weren't as great as they anticipated or expected. So
Okay.
I'm not sure if they were horrible. Let's see if we can find out what it did. Let's
It's
Google
been
it
a
real
week
quick.
because Beeps, usually after about a week, you would know like the approximate pay-per-view. I don't know if it's the same in America. Like in America, about a week, you should know already, but I don't know how it works in the UK though.
Yeah, it doesn't really
Beeps, weren't they expecting about 600,000 pay-per-view buys?
I thought they were expecting somewhere around 800 over with the fight,
Oh,
but
okay.
I
All
don't
right.
know. You can tell me better than anyone, because I don't I wouldn't know, because I'm not from the area. But yeah, that just it doesn't. There's no information for the numbers. Oh, okay. They're saying that it may have done 600,000, but that hasn't been confirmed.
Yeah, that's probably the baseline. It's probably more than that. Because you also got to
So
add in Beeps. You got also got to add in you know those, you can buy the fights on your phone now, whereas
yeah,
previously 5 years ago that's a pay-per-view buy because that wasn't available. But now that is available, it kind of like decreases the pay-per-view, so it increases it.
yeah. So I think when it's all said and done, it probably would have done 600,000. Some people are saying 600,000. Some people are saying 400,000.
Now
But it get
400
I
seems a bit low.
yeah, I would think it did it around 500,000 to 600,000 pay per view buys. And I guess they were anticipating it had the potential to do 800,000 pay per view buys. But again, this is a non title fight. It's a fight that was taking place well past its sell by date, right?
Yeah.
600,000 pay per view buys is a respectable number. And then Eddie Hearn
Yeah.
coming out and saying, well, their numbers weren't great. If I was involved, they would have done better. Again, Eddie Hearn is a very competitive guy. And if he's not involved in an event, he's not going to root for it to do well.
Yeah.
Whereas
Hey,
Bob Arum will come out and say, I want all these events to do well because it enhances the sport as a whole. Therefore, it helps me out. Eddie Hearn
yeah.
doesn't look at it that way. But go ahead.
Hey, Babes, if they fought in, say, 2014 when Brooke had a belt and Amir Khan, I think just was maybe a year removed from losing to Danny Garcia, I think that would have done 1 million pay-per-view buys.
Easily, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah.
World Boxing News has AJ Parker as the biggest UK event
I don't
ever
know
with
about
1
that.
point. I don't know if
I
that's
don't know about
true.
that.
Let's Google it.
No, I think AJ done a 2 million pay-per-view buys in England already.
Highest pay per view UK, highest UK pay per view buys. Let's Google it. Yeah, it says Anthony Joshua, Andy Ruiz too. Yeah.
2 million, right?
It's 1.6. It says.
Nah. Now AJ's already done a 2 million pay-per-view buys. They've already
I don't think they've ever done 2 million over there.
Oh, okay,
I'm not
that's
sure.
right.
Yeah, here it is. Here's the all-time UK pay-per-view buys record. Anthony Joshua versus Andy Ruiz. Oh, this says pay-per-view sales. Okay. So that the pay-per-view sales was 1.54 million for that. And Anthony Joshua versus Vladimir Klitschko was 1.53 million. Anthony Joshua versus Joseph Parker was 1.45 million. So yeah, Parker is number 3. Anthony Joshua versus Andy Ruiz is number 1, and Anthony Joshua versus Vladimir Klitschko is number 2. Yeah. That's what it says here. So,
Beeps, ironically, Fury is nowhere near those pay-per-view buys in the UK.
well, let me ask you this. For this fight, right? Could it do more than people anticipate?
I think it's got the potential to do 1 million pay-per-view buys. Yeah,
I think so too.
because also Beeps Whyte, he can talk. Like he knows how to. He's got the gift of gab per se.
Let me look at another here. Pay-per-view sales for boxing UK 1966 to 2020. Here's a full list of UK pay-per-view figures before and after. Let me see. Post 2010. Anthony Joshua, Dillian Whyte did 420,000 pay-per-view buys, and that was when they both were basically prospects.
Yeah.
Vladimir Klitschko versus Tyson Fury did 545,000 pay-per-view buys. So that's good numbers.
Hey Beefs, James Burrell, one of your followers here, is it's a funny comment about.
Okay, yeah. So this whole Anthony, like the numbers are different on different websites. So yeah, on World Boxing News though, I don't think they're legit, man. They put out a lot of bullshit. Anthony Joshua top 5 pay-per-view buys. Okay, this is September. Let me see. Here's another site here. Yeah, so this site says the couple sites do say Anthony Joshua versus Joseph Parker, but other sites say Andy Ruiz, Anthony Joshua too. So I don't know. It's hard to determine which one is which because you get different numbers on different sites.
But Beeps, the pay-per-view market in America and the UK, they're a bit different, especially the price. It's a bit cheaper in the UK to buy pay-per-views.
Yeah, so this intriguing rematch sold 1.8 million pay-per-view buys on DAZN. Pay-per-view buys internationally. Pay-per-view buys over. Yeah, so they're saying that this fight was the highest amount of buys. The Ruiz Joshua too.
I heard Joshua got about 70 million for that fight because he got some money from Saudi Arabia as well.
Yeah, so number one is the Joshua Ruiz 2 did 1.8 million pay-per-view buys. Okay. And Klitschko versus Joshua did 1.6 million pay-per-view buys. And then Anthony Joshua versus Joseph Parker, they're saying that did, let me see. Let's go here. Let's fucking get an ad here. Okay, let's see if I can go. Joseph Parker did 1.8 buys. Okay. So yeah, it seems like, and then Joshua versus Povetkin, that did 1.1. So yeah, they have Ruiz Joshua 2 as the number one in the UK for pay-per-view buys. So, but some sites saying some sites are saying Parker for revenue, but not for buys. So it's close. I know both the Parker fight and the Andy Ruiz fight did more than the Klitschko fight, and you can argue obviously Klitschko's a bigger name than Parker and Andy Ruiz. So again, because of the circumstances of the fight, by him fighting Parker, that was him getting, him getting another belt and being closer to undisputed. And then the Andrew Ruiz thing had a lot of drama when it came to the the redemption type situation, or was Ruiz a one-hit wonder?
Yeah.
So
Hey,
yeah,
Beebs, pity we didn't see that AJ versus Wilder fight when they're both undefeated. Man, that would have been because
that would have been gigantic.
two
For
heavy
that fight to
punches.
never have happened, it was a travesty.
Now, but Beebs, didn't the Zone offer Wilder a 3-fight deal worth 120 million? His
But
first fight was
here's the thing with that deal. Okay, first of all, we saw what the Zone did with the Canelo deal, and we saw what the Zone did with the Golovkin deal. Both deals were restructured, right?
Yep.
So who knows what would have happened? Plus, AJ lost, and AJ didn't sign anything that guaranteed that he would fight Wilder, right? So I don't know how great that deal was. Everyone talks about that deal, but there was a lot of caveats in that deal. And then by Wilder wanting to know what AJ made was clearly his right to know, because he wanted to know the percent what would be the percentages of the fight. Because again, if that fight was did 2 million pay-per-view buys over in the UK, and then Wilder, what was he going to get? 30 just a flat fee of 30 million with no pay-per-view upside?
But Beebs, and
Again,
Beebs,
come on.
But Beebs, at that time, the Zone didn't have pay-per-view.
Yeah, but it would have been on Sky pay-per-view.
No, I think it was on the Zone. No, that deal.
No, but again, in the UK, it would have been on Sky. It wouldn't have been on the Zone.
I see what you mean.
So Joshua would have been like, the thing in the UK. You can buy pay-per-view after it aired. 200,000 people bought AJ Parker after it was aired. But yeah, again, you would know more than me on Alexander Wilson. I'm not gonna say that you're wrong. I don't know. I don't know. Some sites are saying that fight was the highest, and other sites are saying it was Ruiz Joshua too. I don't know. I would suspect worldwide, though, that fight was probably viewed more than any other fight, any other UK fight, in my opinion. I could be wrong.
Hey, Beeb, speaking of after pay-per-view buys, after it aired, the Pacquiao Marquez 4 did a lot more than 200,000 after it aired, because everyone wanted to see the knockout. And it was a good fight too. It was a two pound for pound great fighters.
Yeah. So Alexander Wilson could be right. I could be wrong. But the fact of the matter is that both those fights did more than the Klitschko fight, and Klitschko's a legend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's a Hall of Famer. Andrew Ruiz and Joseph Parker aren't Hall of Famers. They're not legends. So I guess my point is, it's not always about who the opponent is. It's the magnitude of the event and the circumstances surrounding the event. Because again, people were saying for years Wilder was a nobody. He was this, he was that. But look what him and Fury fought them 3 times. They did some respectable numbers. It was the highest gate in Las Vegas history for a fight, right? So again, if Wilder was this nobody, then why did the fight?
Beeps, I think the Pacquiao Mayweather fight was the highest gate.
No, I'm saying the highest gate for a heavyweight fight in Las Vegas for heavyweight fight, not for a fight. It was the highest heavyweight fight. Did I not say heavyweight? I meant to say heavyweight.
No, you didn't say heavyweight. Yeah,
my fault. So it was the highest heavyweight fight in Las Vegas history. And here's the thing. Those Wilder Fury fights generated more money than those Joshua fights did with Ruiz and with Parker, because again, our pay-per-views are so expensive. Yeah. Our tickets are so expensive. The fights generated more money. So it doesn't matter always about selling out a stadium, because when you look at that Klitschko Joshua fight, they sold over 90,000 tickets, but the gate was only 11 million. Yeah. Right. So when you looked at the gate for Wilder Fury 2, I think it was like 19 million or something like that, and that was only like 16,000 people because the tickets are so high. Some of the tickets sell for like $8,000 here in the United States.
Yeah,
Like
true.
the Pacquiao Mayweather ringside seats, they were like fuck, they were like 10 $15,000. It's
Beeps,
ridiculous.
Beeps, I heard one person bought one for $188,000.
Well, that's aftermarket, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's on the sites. But what happens is when these sites like StubHub buy the tickets and then they turn and sell them, you go by what the actual initial sale was, not what the secondary sale was. So that's how
Yeah.
they determine the revenue.
Beeps, I heard that on fight night that McCarran International Airport had to close the tarmac because there were too many private jets on the plane. Did you hear about that? The Pacquiao Mayweather fight?
Yeah, I don't know about that. Let's address this comment by Enoch, which again, people have to learn how to listen, and they need to learn how to stop taking things out of context. Because a fight generated more revenue, right? Doesn't mean that they still couldn't have lost money on it. Because if you generate a lot of revenue, but your operating costs and your promotional costs exceed that, then obviously you lose money. So the fact that they lost money still doesn't take away from the fact that they made upwards of $19 million in ticket sales. Whether or not they made money off that $19 million is irrelevant. I'm just saying it grossed more money in terms of sales. I'm not saying that. Who knows? Again, who knows if those Joshua fights made money or lost money? We don't know that, and we wouldn't have known that if Bob Arum didn't say it. So how many fights actually make or lose money? Is everyone going to come out and say that they lost money on an event? It's like a gambler. Does he tell you? He only tells you his wins. He doesn't tell you his losses. So who knows how much money? How much money has DAZN lost in their events? How much money have they lost on Canelo fights? How much money have they lost on Joshua fights? We don't know because they're not going to tell us. So because Bob Arum didn't even come out and say he lost money on those fights. You know who came out was Bruce Trampler, the matchmaker. Bruce Trampler tweeted out that they lost money on the second fight. So who knows?
Hey, Beeps, do you know with the gate at the MGM Grand, because it's their stadium, do you know what cut they get? Like, say if the gate did 20 million, how much does MGM get of that?
I know that the MGM pays a site fee, and
Yes.
I'm not 100% sure on how that I can't really speak to that, to be perfectly honest with you. That the
It's their
MGM
stadium, like,
pays a site
you know.
fee, and
Yes.
yeah, I can't 100% sure on how that
Dude,
I
you
can't
must
really.
definitely.
Yeah, I can't speak on that. I don't know how that. I don't know. I know they're definitely going to make money off people there, in the casino gambling, and just the fact that they have people there for the event. They're going to make money off of the concessions. They're going to make money off of the gambling. So I don't know how much of the actual ticket revenue they keep, to be perfectly honest with you. I'd have to do some investigation on that. So I don't want to speak without knowing. But I know that they're making money off of the concessions, and they're making money off of merchandising, and they're making money off of obviously people there gambling. So that's the thing. Matchroom's financials are available for the public, and the last filing they had made 20 million in profit. Oh, okay.
Pretty
Good. That's not bad. And again, Eddie's pretty good with the figures. That's why he bid. He's lost purse bids. So we'll see. Maestro, good morning, brother.
Good morning, Joe. How are you doing?
What's going on?
Not much.
I don't know if you heard any of the earlier.
Oh, I've been listening to the whole thing.
Okay.
Making my coffee.
So what's your thoughts on it? Go ahead.
Well, I think there's a lot of irony in this because, believe it or not, I think that all of this drama with the purse split and will he or will he not take the fight has actually aided the promotion of the fight and is probably going to lead to increased pay-per-view revenue. I mean, it was literally free promotion nonstop for weeks. all over YouTube. Even mainstream media outlets, especially in the UK, were covering this. I see that as aiding the promotion. Um, I think that that's helped the promotion. It's driven interest in the promotion. I think it's going to lead to the promotion doing actually better than it would have otherwise had all of the drama not happened with the will he or won't he, etc. So that's number one. The other thing I wanted to add too is that when people reference Fury's pay-per-view numbers in the United States, sorry, in the UK, I always say the UK when I mean the United States and vice versa. Fury's pay-per-view numbers in the UK, what is absent from that analysis of his numbers is the fact that they've all been very early morning Sunday morning fights in the UK, because they have not taken place in the prime time pay-per-view time slot. It's actually instead taken place, um, in the US during our prime time. So that's going to lead to lower numbers, just as the reverse is going to be true in the U.S. when these fights take place uh, in Europe. In the evening in Europe, and they take place in the afternoon here. They oftentimes, obviously, don't do as well on pay per view, if that makes sense.
What about my opinion on this? And I've always said this: it's not always what someone has done prior, but it's about the event itself. If you put two guys together at the right time under the right circumstances, like Fury Wilder, arguably both guys were not pay-per-view draws. But if you're doing 850,000 pay-per-view buys, that's and in the third fight, in a fight that supposedly no one's interested in, if you're doing 650,000 pay-per-view buys on that, whether or not you made money or not, that's still a lot of revenue and a lot of buys. And so it still exceeds what they have done in the past. Because again, there was a lot of story behind that fight, the Glovegate thing. Same thing with this fight. Whyte having to wait so long. UK versus UK. Both guys don't like each other. The sparring session. Could this be Fury's albatross here? Could this be his silver bullet that could this be his kryptonite, so to speak? Is this a bad style matchup? There's just so much feeding into this, regardless of what Fury did before, regardless of what Whyte did before, because Whyte's always done respectable numbers. This particular event has been a long time coming, and people are clamoring for this fight. So regardless of what either guy did before, because of the story behind this fight and because of the circumstances surrounding this fight, has the potential to do upwards of 800,000 to $1 million over in the UK at least.
Oh, I think it definitely is going to do $1 million, and I say that too because pay-per-views are more reasonably priced in the UK. And again, there's been a lot of promotion, indirect promotion about this fight because obviously the official promotion only just recently started, right? Once the fight was signed and officially announced, but there's been like a ton of unofficial promotion for this. In fact, it's been a while since I've seen a fight get this amount of like attention. That for things not necessarily related to the fight automatically having already been signed, or unless it was a rematch. Obviously, it was the Glovegate stuff with Fury that went nonstop for a long time. But for a brand new fight that has never happened, there's been a lot of promotion around this fight. Especially with the whole purse split situation. When have you heard of like nonstop every day news about a purse split? And will a guy sign a contract? I mean, it was like nonstop for like what 6-7 weeks.
Yeah,
a lot of promotion.
Do you guys, both of you guys, I'll ask this question to both guys. I want to hear both guys' opinion. You actually think that Dillian Whyte is not going to do anything to promote this event? I think that's all bullshit. I think that's just him just blowing smoke. Little Penny, what do you think? I mean, do you think he'll promote this event, or you think he's just blowing smoke?
Nah, man. Dylan White's mouth is too big for him to shut up. No,
Yeah.
I don't think he'll promote. I wouldn't be surprised if he throws water at Tyson Fury when they do the gloves are off edition just to copy what Chisora did to him. Just
Well-
just to piss him off a little bit.
Let me ask you this, because one thing I like about Adam Smith, he sees the big picture, and if a fight is big, he talks about it. He doesn't want to come off as being negative towards anyone else. Doesn't want to come off as being salty towards anyone else, because he's concerned about the growth and the popularity of the sport itself. So even though this is not a Sky fight, do you anticipate Sky, doing things for this fight? Do you anticipate Sky being involved in this fight, whether it be directly or indirectly? Could there be a gloves are off? Does BT Sport, because I think BT Sport's going to be in charge, just be doing the pay-per-view over there. Do they have a show similar to gloves are off? Because Sky's not involved, will there even be a gloves are off over there?
There'll be a gloves are off, but it will be the BT version.
The BT version, right?
But the other thing I think that might be important here is whether or not Sky will be distributing this pay-per-view in any way, because Sky is also the equivalent of a cable or satellite operator. So people subscribe to Sky and then also subscribe to BT Sport as a channel within their Sky package. So if Sky is distributing the pay-per-view, then they have an incentive also to push the pay-per-view.
I heard it was BT Sport doing the pay-per-view, though. I heard it was BT Sport doing the pay-per-view.
No, BT Sport as in the network.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
But Sky is a network, but they're also a cable/satellite.
Yeah. So how could they be involved?
They would be like Comcast or like Time Warner Cable or like Dish Network.
Oh, okay. So BT Sport is
a channel.
It's a channel.
Sky has a number of channels, but Sky is also the equivalent of a Direct TV/Dish Net.
Oh, I understand. Okay.
Sense?
Yes, it does make perfect sense.
So if they're distributing the fight over their, platform in terms of.
So Sky encompasses a lot of
Sky
channels.
is a huge company.
Yeah, I understand that.
It's a cable satellite operator in addition to being a television network.
So Little Penny, Sky could be involved in this as well as BT?
Yeah, I don't know, but you know what? Because both of them are quite they're relevant per se. They'll be on Good Morning Britain, that's for sure.
Yeah.
If Katie Taylor can be in there, I reckon both of them will be in there.
Yeah. Is BT
Dillian White's already been on there, I believe. Fury definitely has.
Fury has definitely.
Remember Pierce Morgan used to host that show, and he was a huge Tyson Fury fan. So Tyson Fury was on there.
Little Penny,
can you do me a favor and repost the link, because I want to sign in on another computer?
Sure, no problem.
Just in the main chat, not in the private chat.
No problema.
Thank you.
Hey Maestro, is that Chairman Mao's hat? Well, what kind of hat is that?
It's just a red star, my brother.
Oh, just a red. Okay, all right. Just curious.
People can take that for what they will.
That hat is open to interpretation, and I love when he does shit like that, because he's trying to be a lot of things to a lot of different people.
So Penny, that's very astute. Very astute.
Yeah. That's hilarious, man.
Because Maestro, I was in China
before Mao broke bad with the Cultural Revolution.
Because Maestro, I was in China about 2 or 3 years ago. I was in Beijing, and I was at the Tiananmen Square, and there was a hat like that, but it was green with a red star, and I was thinking,
I've got that one too in my closet.
Yeah, I was thinking of buying it, but I didn't, because I thought, what would people think of me when I wear it outside?
It's I like to look at a hat. It's one of my most comfortable caps. I love the red star, so why not?
That's hilarious.
Why not?
That is hilarious.
Yeah.
Shout out to you for visiting Beijing. I've been there a couple times too.
Yeah, great. It's everything is big in Beijing.
Where do you live, Little Penny? What country?
New Zealand.
New Zealand? Okay. I wasn't sure if you lived in the UK, Australia.
No, New Zealand.
Where do you live, Little Penny? What country?
New Zealand.
New Zealand? Okay.
Well, someone's echoing again.
Yeah, Maestro's echoing. So I put the link in there for you, Maestro, if you want to jump on and off.
He's on mute.
Yeah, I had to mute him because he was getting background.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I put the link in there for you, so you're ready to go. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, when do you think this thing is gonna like ramp up? When do you think they're gonna start going hard with the promotion? How do you think this whole thing is going to play out?
Yeah, April's gonna be. Well, now I'm echoing.
No, he was echoing. Go
Oh,
ahead.
yeah, April's going to be a good boxing month because Taylor and Serrano's on that month too. I hope they do. I hope they do like the old days where they do a 4-episode HBO 24/7 type series. I don't know. I don't know if ESPN has that kind of platform that can do that. I hope they do that just to liven up the fight a little bit.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see how that whole thing plays out, man. To be perfectly honest with you, but yeah. So what's up with the nickname Little Penny? Is that Penny Hardaway? Are you a basketball fan? Yeah, you like Penny Hardaway?
Yeah, he was my favorite player growing up. I got his jersey. I still have it actually. The
Oh, wow.
#1 jersey. But this is when Shaq was still there. But when Shaq left and he tried to carry the team, he injured himself. So
Yeah, they were in the finals with like Houston. I remember that.
yeah.
I thought they had a better team than Houston, but Elijah. Well, I don't know. They had a faster, younger team than Houston, but Houston just was.
It's Nick Anderson, man. Nick Anderson, dude. He was the one that had they won that first game, because the third game was quite close. They should have won that too, actually.
What did Nick Anderson miss that free throw or something, and they could have won it?
Yeah.
I remember that game. What year was that?
94, I think. 94 or 95.
Wow.
I think maybe
Crazy.
95. Yeah.
And then they got swept. That's correct. Who
They got swept. Yeah.
Who would have thought?
But they should have won game, Beebs. They should have won game 1, and they should have won game 3. Game 3 was very close. They should have won that game.
Yeah, some of those games are competitive and they were right there to be won,
Yeah.
but for whatever reason, someone didn't do something, or I don't want to say they choked, but maybe they did.
Penny was tearing up Houston, man, because they didn't have any guards to guard him.
Yeah, but Shaq was having a hard time with Olajuwon.
Yeah.
Olajuwon just, you know what it was? Olajuwon was outmaneuvering him. You know, he just was. He was out finessing him.
Yeah.
Olajuwon was smart. He knew when to muscle you, depending upon who you were, and he knew when to play his finesse game out.
And you know, Beast, whenever they double teamed Olajuwon, he didn't get scared. Whereas Shaq, when they did double team him, it was like he didn't know what to do.
And you could see from that point to when Shaq ultimately went to the Lakers, how he grew.
Yeah,
you could see the growth.
But I still think prime for prime, Biebs, I still think Olajuwon will beat him, because Olajuwon was a two-way.
Olajuwon was he was a more skilled center.
Yeah.
Let's do a poll in the chat. Who was better, Shaq or Olajuwon?
Because, dude, all you need to do is to double team Shaq, and he can't do anything. Like, especially if it's like a double team like Jordan and say Pippen, because Pippen had he was had wider arms and stuff. Olajuwon can counter that sometimes, because he can spin off you. Where Shaquille, he couldn't do that. He had to pass it off, and sometimes he had troubles doing that.
I think even Shaq himself said Hakeem outplayed him and he was better than him. And I remember. Also,
Biebs, during the clutch, there was a lot of times where Kobe bailed out Shaq or the Lakers per se. So, and the thing is with Olajuwon, he had to do it himself, whereas Shaq couldn't. Sometimes he was not even in the game after during the last 2 minutes because he couldn't shoot free throws.
Well, the whole thing about Kobe was he got a lot of criticism for taking a lot of shots, but that was just his game. Like, and the thing about Kobe is his ability to still hit the big shots after shooting a low percentage throughout the course of the game. His mind never switched off.
Yeah.
He always knew what he had to do. That poll is blasphemous. That's a great poll. Come on. That's a good debate. Basketball in the box, dude. We talk about all types of shit. We talk about women. We talk about food. We talk about fucking politics. We talk about everything on this channel, man. Because everything.
Hey, Beeps, what's going on in Ukraine, man? I hear they're going after Klitschko now because he's the mayor of Kiev.
Yeah, I mean, I don't I don't know what to think of that whole situation because there's issues on both sides there. I don't I it's hard to pick a side when both sides have you can find fault with both sides, but the whole thing
Beeps,
with
I hear the reason why Russia is invading Ukraine is because Ukraine is joining NATO, which they saw as an act of war. Because NATO has always been like the enemy of Russia.
yeah, yeah, there's a whole lot of things going on over there, and like I said, both sides. Maestro knows a lot more about it. I wish if he jumps back on, he can talk about it. But I know both sides don't have perfectly clean hands in this situation. You could look at both situations here. My problem is I don't like when the U.S. gets involved and they choose a side, just like with the
Oh,
whole Iraq Afghanistan thing. And look what ultimately happened there. Afghanistan turned into the Taliban because of us giving them weapons. So yeah,
they shouldn't, Beeps. They shouldn't hear on because Russia has got a quick trigger at the moment. Their
yeah,
aircraft carriers should stay in the Philippines or wherever they dock them. Don't go to Europe, man, because dude, it could take just one plane, and all of a sudden now then they'll just be firing missiles at each other. I think
yeah.
America should stay away from Europe for the time being.
Yeah, my America shouldn't be getting involved in this, and then they're putting themselves in a situation where they're forcing people over here to choose sides, and I think a lot of us are uninformed. But
Yeah.
Maestro, talk about it a little bit because you articulated it pretty well to me before about
Well,
why both sides could be considered bad actors here, and why the United States shouldn't really get involved in this because both sides are bad, so you're picking your poison, so to speak.
absolutely. So, here in the U.S., uh, in Britain now too, for many years. I remember when I was growing up, I actually used to really respect the BBC as a place that I could get like objective, straight facts journalism and reporting. But that hasn't been the case for a really long time, at least since the United States attacked Iraq over weapons of mass destruction. Probably before that, but I was coming of age, so that was kind of my seminal moment with the BBC. Uh, you're forced to pick sides. Every situation is good guy versus bad guy. Um, Here in domestic politics, one side portrays the Republicans as good, the other side portrays them as bad. One side portrays the Democrats as good, the other side portrays the Democrats as bad. And it's that way essentially with every single foreign relations issue. And this whole thing with Ukraine and with Russia is an example of that. I had a very long telephone call with a good friend of mine yesterday who was telling me that he read about the situation. He was well read on it, and that because of what he read, this is all Russia's fault. And my whole question was, well, what were you reading? Have you read any Russian sources or just Western sources? Because there's two sides to every story. And my opinion on this, Joe, is that they're both bad actors. All sides around. I should say all sides are bad actors because it's not two actors, right? This isn't between the Ukraine and Russia. Uh, if anything, um, Ukraine is almost a proxy for Western expansion into the border regions with Russia. Now, this whole incident didn't just occur this week in isolation. You have to go back a really far into history to kind of fully understand it. What was Ukraine? What was Russia? The formation of Russia? The Russia under Nicholas II, the last Tsar of Russia. Um, his ambitions for Russian expansion, and obviously he was dethroned, and Russia became part of the Soviet Union under Vladimir Lenin and Leon Trotsky and those who fought on the side of the Bolsheviks in that revolution. But Putin is he's not a communist. This is something that my friend also told me. Oh, he's a communist. It's democracy versus communism. Putin's not a communist. In fact, his main political adversaries in Russia, or the Communist Party and other parties, but the Communist Party being one of them. He doesn't harken back to the great Soviet Union. Putin actually harkens back to Tsarist Russia um, under Nicholas II, because Russia wanted to expand under Nicholas II, and make everything Russian territory. If you guys remember, under the Soviet Union was actually comprised of republics: Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Ukraine. I could go on and on. Lithuania. That wasn't what Tsarist Russia would have wanted. Tsarist Russia would have wanted all that to be Russia. Under the Soviet Union, they were all their kind of um, republics, and that's something that Putin actually did not like about the Soviet Union. So, putting all of that history aside, because a lot of what is now Ukraine actually used to be in Russia, um, you know, and was switched during the Soviet Union under Stalin, Crimea and other regions. You have to go back to 2014, right? Ukraine is not a democratic country. Um, Ukraine had a leader, Viktor Yanukovych. Everyone can look him up. He was a leader that was trying to be friendly with the West and trying to be friendly with Russia at the same time. Viktor Yanukovych was overthrown non-democratically. He and his family were forced into exile. They did that to essentially save their lives. All right, and this current um, group that's in Ukraine right now, ruling Ukraine, was his political opposition. Um, there were others, but they're political opposition. And for the last 8 years, the Ukrainian government, based in Kiev, has been indiscriminately bombing and shelling the eastern part of Ukraine. Now, there's been a civil war in the Ukraine, and a lot of people haven't really been talking about this. Um, and in that civil war, up like 82%, let's just say 80% of the casualties have been ethnic Russians living in the eastern regions of the Ukraine. So if you're Putin, and I'm not saying what Putin did was good. Remember, I started off by saying that all of these people are bad. Putin's political base in Russia will not tolerate ethnic Russians being indiscriminately shelled and bombed, and heavy artillery being fired on them and dying in the tens of thousands, and their leader not do anything about it. It was a political move for that reason, number one. The second reason is that NATO has been trying to expand onto the doorsteps of Russia, and Ukraine has been trying to become a part of that. Ukraine being the government based in Kiev. Now, again, if you're Putin and you're thinking about your political base that views you as a strong man, that is unacceptable. That's unacceptable to the people that maintain him in power. Let's not forget that NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, is not a democratic, democracy pushing organization, right? This is a military alliance. It's not, the EU or the United Nations. In fact, they've engaged in illegal activities, including the bombing of Yugoslavia, when Slobodan Milosevic led Yugoslavia, and the breakup of the Yugoslavia had a lot to do, if not mostly to do, with NATO's involvement, being the deciding factor there. So in that part of the world, NATO is not viewed the way it's being presented in our media. NATO is viewed as a military organization, which it is, and the threat to Russia, which is up to obviously interpretation. But that's how it's viewed there. So when you combine the indiscriminate shelling and killing of Russian ethnic people in eastern Ukraine, um, plus the expansion of NATO, Putin politically, as a strong man, if you look at this from a real world politics perspective, a realist perspective, one that's based on power, uh, Putin has to act powerfully. And I want people to do this thought exercise, right? Let's say China, right, overthrew the government of Mexico, installed a China friendly um, government there, and wanted to set up, you know, uh, a military, a treaty organization in Mexico, and set up bases and point weapons at the United States. What would the United States do about that?
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
What would the United States do if uh, if China was funding essentially neo Nazis in in the northern parts of Mexico that were indiscriminately killing U.S. citizens based in Mexico? What would the United States do about that? I mean, I'm not saying it's good or bad, but strong countries act a certain way, powerful countries act a certain way, strong leaders act a certain way. And the idea that Putin, a strong man who positions himself as that in Russia, would allow those things to happen to Russia and on Russia's doorsteps. I mean, you guys are kidding yourselves if you didn't think that this would happen. And the last thing I want to say about this too is that a lot of the U.S. economy is based on weapon sales. Lockheed Martin,
Mm.
Boeing, Raytheon, and many, many others. They need permanent markets for their products. Permanent markets for their products require uh, conflict. You don't sell weapons if there's no conflict.
Yeah.
And when you're funneling money and weapons into a region nonstop, and then a conflict ensues. And by the way, they've been funding neo Nazis in the eastern part of the Ukraine that have been involved in killing a lot of those Russians. You can't just say, "Oh, yeah, I sent arms over there. I flooded that area with weapons, but I have nothing to do with it. This doesn't involve me." Which is what I was discussing with my friend over the phone. I mean, he's like, "Oh, this has nothing to do with the United States." No, it has everything to do with the United States. The United States sells arms to the Ukraine, and if you listen to what's going on in the UK right now, they're talking about sending more UK arms right now to the Ukraine. So that's a big part of my analysis of this as well.
Maestro, didn't it also the US, didn't they arm the Syrian rebels as well? And that's the reason why,
Well,
like,
thank you. That's another point of hypocrisy, right? Because where was the media coverage when Saudi Arabia was bombing and killing so many people, innocent people, children, uh, with U.S. weapons, taking over Yemeni territory? Where was the media coverage about that? Right? They talk about Russia going in and taking over parts of a country that it doesn't that don't belong to it. Yes, that's true. And again, I've started this off. I don't want anyone saying that I'm defending Russia here. I'm just giving a picture of how international relations actually works. It's not my guy good, your guy bad, me no like him, me like this person, which is literally the level of analysis that you'll get in the mainstream media. The fact is, Israel took over Syrian Golan Heights, right? The United States sells untold numbers of weapons to Israel. Israel used those weapons to take over Syrian territory and claim it as its own. The United States under Trump actually recognized the Golan Heights as belonging to Israel, right? Um, the United States, all right, went into Yugoslavia, right? And let's not forget, Kosovo used to be part of Serbia, which used to be part of the Yugoslavia, and the entire Western world, Western being the advanced capitalist states of Western Europe, not to mention Canada, United States, Australia, New Zealand. They all recognize Kosovo independence, right? Why? Because they said that Slobodan Milosevic and the Serbians were, essentially doing exactly what the Ukraine has been doing to the eastern regions of the Ukraine, right? Think about this narrative too, right? When Al-Assad is bombing regions of his country under ISIS control, right? Or Saddam was doing terrible things to regions in his country and the people that live there. We always heard, oh, this dictator is killing his own people, right? But when the Ukrainian government was doing it to the eastern part of the Ukraine, they weren't called Ukrainians. It was never considered, oh, they're killing their own people. They always said it was a fight between Ukraine and quote unquote Russian separatists. Well, why weren't they talking about them killing their own people? So it's a complete double standard, left, right, and center. Like there's so many examples. of this.
Am I wrong in saying this, or am I oversimplifying or providing a false equivalency when I look back to the U.S. Funding Afghanistan and their conflict with Russia? What didn't we create the Taliban as a result of that? And as it all, and ultimately, what it was once again, I believe, and it's my opinion, another money grab for the U.S. Right?
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. Now, what people tend to forget is that there was a socialist government in Afghanistan. All right, at the time, and that government was essentially doing things that a lot of people, not the majority, but a lot of people in Afghanistan at the time found abhorrent. Well, Maestro, what were these things? Women going to school, women being in government. Um, you know, a lot of it had to do with those kind of gender issues, and not to mention the fact that they were a secular government. So there were a lot of very conservative, right wing Muslims at the time that did not like this and who took up arms against that government, right? That government actually asked the Soviet Union to go and defend it, which was the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. Now, what the United States did in response to that was they armed the local Mujahideen, which became the Taliban, and they also funded the importation of Arabs to fight there, freedom fighters, Arab freedom fighters were waging jihad against the Soviet Union. And those groups included people like Saddam Hussein and essentially then became Al Qaeda. So you're absolutely right about that, Joe.
You mean Osama bin Laden?
Sorry, what did I say?
You said Saddam Hussein.
Oh my God! See how it works over here. I meant Osama bin Laden. Thank you so much, Lopez. That's exactly what I.
So at one point, Osama bin Laden was actually our ally.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, Osama bin Laden was trained by the CIA, and
so then
he and his fighters were
Maestro, tall guy too, 6'4". He could have been a basketball player. Damn, man, he could have been like Joe Dumas, 6'4".
And here's another thing too. Then the question could be asked: well, why don't we ever help and fund Russia? Because Russia doesn't really need our help when it comes to weapons. They usually have an abundance of weapons. That's one of their strong suits. You know, they have a pretty strong military.
Bibbs, in World War II, when Russia and Germany were allies, and Hitler traveled to Russia to meet with Stalin. Stalin actually said that he wanted to invade America, and Hitler said, "Okay, I'll take care of the UK. You take care of America." But then, for some reason, like Germany invaded Russia. Like, what happened? What happened there? Like,
yeah, I didn't know that, but yeah, and anybody who wants to look into what I've been talking about, just look up the history of Dr. Najib. All right.
See, when
one sec, Joe. Dr. Najib Mohammed Najibullah. He was the last socialist leader of Afghanistan, and he had to live in exile. In fact, I believe
Afghanistan was a paradise back then, Maestro. It was like, the girls were wearing bikinis and stuff like that. Now they can't even drive, dude. Like Saudi Arabia just started letting women drive. That's horrendous, man. Come on, some of these Muslim countries, man, you need to get with the times, dude.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact is, you hit the nail right on the head, Lil Penny. I mean, women were going to beaches. People were allowed to drink alcohol. That was abhorrent to the Mujahideen, and the CIA funded the Mujahideen to overthrow this government and of Dr. Najib. And Dr. Najib's government asked the Soviet Union to go in to protect it because he was close, obviously, with the Soviet Union at the time. And it's my friend's friend is my friend's enemy is my friend, or my enemy's enemy is my friend, so to speak. And the United States essentially created Al Qaeda and the Taliban to fight Dr. Najib's government and the Soviet Union.
So, would it be safe to say that we destroyed Afghanistan, basically?
100%. In fact, under the Taliban, they were blowing up those ancient Buddhist You remember the ancient Buddhist carvings on the side of a mountain? I mean, Afghanistan was ravaged after this happened. And look, they did a similar thing in Iran when they overthrew Mossadegh, um, someone who, you know, was, I wouldn't necessarily call him a socialist, but he was definitely progressive and left wing. And, you know, the CIA, MI6, the British equivalent, got him overthrown and replaced him with the Shah. And eventually the Shah was overthrown by the people in an Islamic revolution. But we went from progressive country to uh, monarchy, absolute dictatorship, authoritarian monarchy, to an Islamic theocratic state, which is currently what it is. But you got like you always, you don't just look at the outcome, right? You got to look at what led to the outcome, which is what a lot of people are just totally ignoring when it comes to this situation with the Russia.
You know,
with Russia.
Maestro, because America has got so much influence, not just financially but culturally as well, they should help countries, kind of like what. Oh, sorry, am I echoing? Kind of like what China is doing to Africa. Like a lot, China is actually building a lot of infrastructure in Africa, where they're building railways and stuff like that. America should do the same thing. They should do that to Central America, like build like a railway where you can go from Costa Rica then all the way to California, like stuff like that, man. Like
when you mentioned Costa Rica, because Costa Rica used to recognize Taiwan, the Republic of China, and not the People's Republic of China. And China has a different way of exercising its power. So what they did was they're like, look, let's sign some trade agreements with you. We're going to build you a national stadium. Look at a national stadium of Costa Rica. It was built by the People's Republic of China. And they gain influence like that. You know, they gain influence by building things, right? Now people have to pay for them, but what they do is they offer them low interest loans, and then those countries have to pay them back by utilizing their wealth, which is usually natural resources. That's what they're doing in Africa. The British model was to go in, take over, and take everything for themselves. The United States model is go in, put up a puppet government, and take everything for yourself, and build military bases there. China's taken a totally different approach of let's go in, respect you. Yeah, we're going to pay off a lot of politicians, but people are going to get some crumbs off of the table. We're going to build apartment buildings. We're going to build roads. We're going to build ports. We're going to build trains. We're going to send you buses and things like that. We're going to build telephone lines and power systems and build internet. And we're going to exercise our power and gain influence like that, which is a different model altogether. There are people that have a problem with it, but I definitely think it's a better model than the other model before.
And by putting these things out doesn't mean we hate America. We're just not on board with everything America does. And we're just pointing out some of the hypocrisies, because a lot of this stuff is virtue signaling. Oh, we want to preserve democracy around the world. Well, China's not a democratic country. Saudi Arabia is not a democratic country. These are
half, Beebs, half.
Saudi Arabia is a democratic country.
China.
No.
Oh, China. Okay, fair enough.
Look, at the end of the day, it's very difficult for the United States to complain about China and Chinese democracy, to me. When China has over 1.6 million people, billion, sorry. The United States has a bit over 300 million, but like the U.S. prison population is bigger than China's. Yeah. U.S. has the biggest prison population in the world. The U.S. I mean, like it's the largest penal colony in the world, the United States.
Yeah.
But people want to talk about other countries. Look at the amount of people that don't have rights in this country. They get sent to prison, right? Then they come out of prison, and in many states they can't vote, they can't get mortgages, they can't get good jobs, you know, because they got a scarlet letter for the rest of their life. What kind of a democracy is that? You know,
Maestro, I've been to America 3 times, right? Because I love America and it influenced my life, especially like, you know, basketball, hip hop. But the thing that I found out that when I went to America, the first thing that I noticed, and I don't want to because I know both of you guys are Americans, but the first thing I noticed was, man, America is such a racist country, man. Like the blacks and the whites, they hate each other. It's the first thing that I noticed coming out of the airport, right? Because I went to the airport. I was at the I took the shuttle from Lax to my hotel, and I was sitting with 3 white girls, and the bus driver was a black woman, right? And I asked the 3 girls, I said, how much do I tip her? Because I hear in America you have to tip everybody, right? So I was ready. And the 3 girls said, no, don't tip her. Like, and then when they got off, and then when I got off, I asked the black lady, hey, do I tip you? And she said, yeah, it's 10%. So I gave her money, and I asked the black lady, I said, hey, those 3 girls at the back, they said not to tip you. And she said, no, because they're racist. And that was my first half an hour in America. So already like almost thinking, oh my God, like, oh my,
yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what, yeah, I mean, that's a thank you for sharing that story, Lil Penny. I got other stories for you because my family's not from here. My family's from Central America and the Caribbean. Sometimes our people, we don't even get out of the airport. We get caught in detention. You know what I mean? I can't tell you the amount of times my mom flying back from the Caribbean gets stopped in Miami and has to catch a new flight and whatnot because they needed to check her bags and make sure she wasn't pushing drugs and all kind of other things. I mean, look, my whole issue here is let's just stop the hypocrisy. What Putin is doing, if innocent civilians especially are dying, is very, very bad. Absolutely. I saw a message in the chat from somebody saying that Ukraine's getting smashed, right? But at the same time, if you're bringing up that Russia is smashing the Ukraine, you have to also bring up that the Ukraine for the last 8 years, the government in Kiev, which by the way, again, is not democratic, has been indiscriminately shelling and bombing innocent civilians in its own country in these regions that want to separate. So have the same amount of vitriol for that you have for what Russia's doing. Again, I'm not here defending Russia. I'm saying there's a bigger picture, though, that nobody's talking about. And killing is wrong. So we got to talk about killing on all sides, not just on one side.
Yeah, and a lot of times, and most times, the United States doesn't really care about advancing democracy. They care about their own economic interests. That's why they went into Iraq. That's why they've gone into other countries because of natural resources. Yeah, natural resources or just economic power. Then they ship all their companies and all their labor over to China because they want cheap labor. And we complain about the economy, but the powers that be over here, which be these big companies, they're the ones that are destroying the economy by shipping all the jobs and all the work over there.
So, Joe, I want to respond. I want to respond to 2 things. Actually, I want you to respond to the second, and I'll respond to the first. So, the first one I want to respond to is Paul Young. He says, Maestro, China will soon have military ships in the Caribbean like Jamaica. They absolutely will never have military ships in the Caribbean like Jamaica because the United States will never allow that to happen. Look up the Monroe Doctrine. It's never going to happen. It never has happened. The United States would never allow that to happen. And essentially what I'm saying is exactly what Russia is doing right now in terms of the expansion of NATO. So that's number one. And then I want you to respond to Mad Chad Sports, because I'm pretty sure, Joe, this was a response to my comment about the U.S. prison system. His answer to that is don't go to prison. Joe, can you speak a little bit? Because I don't want to be the only one talking about this. Can you speak a little bit about kind of the economic and socioeconomic conditions in the United States that lead to people going to prison and well over half of those people being Black people, even though Black people represent about 13% of the country? Just don't go to prison, Joe. Young man, don't go to prison. Don't go to prison.
All you have to do is just look back to the 1994 crime bill, and that says it all. The way we just lock people up for anything, these petty drug crimes. Look at some of these people that have been released, that have gotten pardons. Look at that lady that had a minor drug offense, and she was like in jail for like 10 years or something like that. So I just think that the judicial system needs a lot of work, and admittedly, a lot of politicians have said the same thing, and now they're only recently trying to fix it. Right? Look at how they're changing a lot of laws, and you could look at Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, these two people who are in office right now. Look at all of the people they locked up. Kamala Harris was once saying that kids who commit truancy, that their parents were could go to jail. I mean, single moms. How is that helpful?
The other thing too, I mean, how many people were locked up because of the financial crisis, Joe?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, trillions of dollars. Who got locked up over that?
Only one. What's his name? The Ponzi scheme guy. His son committed suicide too, actually.
You're talking about Bernie Madoff. That was a separate issue. I'm talking about the entire financial crash. Right? Yeah. The fact is, people don't go to prison in this country for the most part if they have money. And they violate all of us. The people that mostly go to prison here are people that, are trying to find some solace in drugs. And people that are in and around the drug market.
Well,
but not if you're the Sackler family pushing OxyContin.
It's definitely socioeconomic. That's a big reason why there's a lot of people in prison, because all you have to do is look at the people that are in prison. There's not a lot of wealthy people in prison, right? So the question is, don't go to prison. Right. That's what he says, or the statement I should say is, don't go to prison. Well, how about this? Why not?
Chad,
go ahead. Low percentage.
Come back. Go ahead.
Low percentage of people in prison are innocent. Not necessarily.
Well, a high percentage of people are in prison for things that shouldn't even be crimes. How about that?
That's another thing.
You talk about Russian and China prison systems better, LOL, LOL, LOL. Why does the United States have more people locked up than China, which has 1.6 billion people? We've got just over 300 million here. You don't have a problem with that? You don't have a problem? You don't have a problem with private for-profit prisons? You don't have a problem with people making money off of people going to prison for drug crimes? That doesn't bother.
And here's another thing: a lot of these, they get free labor from these prisoners too.
Look at the firefighting crisis in Los Angeles. I mean, in California, they didn't want to release nonviolent offenders from prison because they needed them in prison where they were earning like $1 a day fighting forest fires. What?
Yeah. So,
Beebs, I was in New York, right?
Go ahead.
On holidays, and I was lost, right? Because New York, there's too many blocks, right? Because I'm from New Zealand, where
I'm not a big fan of New York. No disrespect to Maestro. I can only stay there. I can only stay there for so long. It's a little too.
Beebs, I love my stay in New York.
I'm not crazy about New York. It's too.
You're coming to watch a fight. I thought you were coming to watch a fight.
I'm not saying.
I sent pictures of your Airbnb yesterday, fam. I put the workout.
No, but what I'm trying to say is I could never live there. It's a good place to visit, but I can't live there. That's all I'm saying. But go ahead, little.
But I was there for the Sergio Martinez, Miguel Cotto fight. So, but I went around. I just, because I was there for a week, right? I got lost, so I needed some help, right? Because I don't know where I am. I've been going round in circles. So I went to one of the New York cops, because in New Zealand, when you ask a cop here, they will help you. Not only that, they'll probably take you there. Like, they'll put you in a car. They'll take you to where you want to go. I asked the cops, right? The New York cops, and you know what he told me? He goes, "Go away." Like, it was really rude. I was thinking,
what do I look like? What do I look like? A travel agent?
Yeah, or something like that. Like, he was really rude, right? And I got like, because a cop, like, you not only have to preserve the peace, you also have to help the public. That's because you're a public guy, right? I expected some help, like some direction, like, well, you go this way, like, because instead I felt like I felt like I was alienated, like, you know what I mean? Well, I don't know, like that was the impression I have with cops in America. Like, the cops don't seem to help the people. They seem to, like, I don't know, like I it's not like the cops that we have here. Like, we actually respect the cops here in New Zealand.
every time a relative of mine from outside the country has visited the United States, the first thing they notice about the police here are the fact that a lot of them are like very overweight, if not obese. Um, that's number one. And, you know, it's very difficult not to see here in New York City that a lot of cops are sitting in their cars on their cell phones. A lot of cops are standing in train stations on their cell phones. Um, a lot of cops are just driving around, you know, in their cars, and the one riding shotgun is on his or her cell phone. A lot of cops are like eating food, and they're like, it's not like other countries where you see the cops like walking around like nonstop, like actually doing shit. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying there aren't good cops, there are, but like I've had very similar experiences, Lil Penny. It's like I've had a couple motorcycles stolen, right? And when I go to report it, they're like, "What are you doing? Like, why are you bothering me? Uh, you left your motorcycle outside. Of course it got stolen." Like that kind of an attitude. You know what I mean? I remember I had one bike stolen. You have to call 911 because if you go to the precinct, they tell you no, you got to call 911. I call 911. I'm waiting until the next day for somebody to show up to do a fucking report. You know, it's one of the reasons I stopped riding bikes like I used to. It's like, why am I buying bikes, working on my bikes, you know, spending so many weekends with my tools out, only to have, you know, some people watching me. And once they see what I've done to my bike, steal my bike, and then nobody does anything to help me get my bike back. It's like, because I live in an apartment too, like most people do in New York City. So I don't have like a garage. I can't, you got to leave your bike on the street, you know? So
No, but Maestro, just full disclosure, when I was in New York, it was the only time in my life where I felt alive because a lot of my hobbies and what I like was in New York, like baseball, basketball, boxing, like the shows. Like I saw the Blue Man Group off Broadway. Like there's so many tall buildings. I love buildings. You know, I'm not
we
really
got
a
the
big.
we got the museum, we got the museums
Yeah,
too here.
museum. Some of them are free too.
Yeah, a lot of them are free. You know,
Yeah,
we got
yeah, yeah.
the zoo, we got the
Maestro,
Bronx.
Maestro, you know what the best part? Maestro, you know what the best part was? I was in a subway, right? I was just sitting down minding my own business, and then these two old black men they came out of the next carriage and they started singing "Boys to Men" a cappella, right? No instrument, and it was the most beautiful music I have ever heard. So, and then when they finished, the people gave them money. So of course I'm gonna follow them. I gave them money too. And it's like, man, New York is like, there's a lot of bad things, but the good outweighs the bad. You know, the traffic
I
is bad.
agree. I agree. My major issue with New York right now, like I love New York City.
But Maestro, the only thing, the bad thing is I couldn't sleep because like at 3 o'clock in the morning there'll be like a
Noisy.
siren that would come
Too
off.
Well,
noisy.
anyone who watches my channel, especially Mano a Mano with Kenny T, like that's prime time siren time. Like that's a constant character in our show, the New York City.
Oh, you know what? 3 o'clock in the morning, dude.
New York
Well,
City
why
patrol car, huh?
But Maestro, at 3 o'clock in the morning, you don't need to put the sirens. Like, dude, just drive there. Like, no need because everyone's sleeping.
Yeah, with the lights. But last thing I want to say about New York, and I want to bring it back to sports. The major problem I have with New York, especially in terms of raising children and giving them opportunities, specifically in sports, is that New York City right now is terrible for sports. Now the focus here is on professional sports, the Giants, the Yankees, the Jets, the Mets, the Knicks, the Nets. But when you talk about youth sports, I mean, there's nothing. And what there is costs so much money to participate in. It's crazy.
Maestro?
High school, there's first of all, there's almost no college sports in New York City. So if you don't care about college sports, you're not really going to care about high school, like basketball, let's say. So high school basketball right now is terrible. I mean, the last NBA players that came out of New York really were Lance Stevenson and Kemba Walker. I know you're a basketball fan, right? So Lance Stevenson out of Brooklyn, Kemba Walker from here in the Bronx, where I live. They're not producing NBA basketball players anymore. And the ones that do show any kind of talent now, by the time middle school's over, so by the time they're like 13, they're going to a prep school out of state, right?
Maestro, Maestro,
There's nothing. Yeah, go ahead.
Maestro, I think it's got something to do with the AAU system. That's like ruining the sport. They're the high school basketball players that used to come out of New York, like as you know, Kenny Anderson, and these
Chris Mullin,
BK, Bernard King, Bernard King,
Stephon Marbury,
Stephon Marbury,
Lamar Odom, he out of Christ the King.
From Rhode Island. I think it's the AAU system that's ruining.
But here's the thing with that, little Penny. There's AAU in Indiana. There's AAU in Texas. There's AAU in Georgia, in Florida, in Vegas. All of these places are killing New York City right now when it comes to youth sports. You look at the top 100 ranked clubs. Like my wife played Division I college volleyball, so I know a little bit about volleyball and that system through her. Her family had to spend tens of thousands of dollars on youth programs here for her to get to where she had to go. And none of those programs were as good as they are in other states. Same is true with basketball. The fact is, you look at the top 100 ranked clubs in volleyball, in basketball, and in other sports, you will not find a single club in the top 100 ranked. It's that bad right now in New York City. And then to bring it back to what we were talking about before with the prisons and all of that, you wonder why all of these shootings now in New York City, like the majority of them are done by people under the age of like 21. It's crazy. They have nothing to look forward to, because even if you're going to school, there's no real good school sports for you that leads to anything that you can believe in, right? It's become very bad, and it's actually one of the main reasons I'm thinking.
St. John's, Maestro?
St. John's hasn't been good in a while, and not only that, St. John's is a college. It's not like a high school. So
you're talking about high school. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing to look forward to, So, it's one of the reasons I'm considering relocating in the next few years, specifically for the youth sport issue. Because you want to go to museums, you want to go to professional sports, you want to go to nice restaurants and go to bars and have brunch and all of that stuff that people who have excess income in New York do. That's great. I mean, New York is a great city if you're an adult with cash. But if you're not that, and if you're thinking about children, this is not a good place right now at all.
Yeah, you need to take your children to like ballets and like, karate and all that, like what families usually do.
And all of that stuff costs big bank in New York City. Big bank.
T-ball, rounders. I don't know if you guys play rounders. Like it's a small bat. It's like baseball. Yeah.
No, we don't play that over here. But
what about kick the can? You play kick the can over there? Play manhunt?
Video games have taken over in New York City. I see it.
Same here. Hey, Maestro, Bib, same here. When I used to grow up, we used to have like not gangs, but all the kids around the streets would hang out. We would do skateboarding, biking.
Manhunt? Play manhunt? You ever play manhunt?
No, Duck Hunt. Remember Duck Hunt? But anyway, but now the kids these days, they just hang around with their parents. They just play the Nintendo. There's hardly any kids like bike riding with each other. It's basically the kids and their parents. And I think, I don't know, maybe does that hamper the kids' growth when they finally become an adult?
It's turning kids into being antisocial. That's why the whole thing about not letting kids go to school and doing the remote learning, you're basically destroying a child's social skills.
Also, my teachers, they used to hit me, right? And I couldn't tell my parents because my parents would then also hit me. Now the kids, they're probably hitting the teachers. Like it's the other way around. Like there's got to be some control there, like an even playing field where like the teachers are the boss, right? Maestro, aren't you a teacher?
I am. It's funny you mentioned this because my mom and my sisters live in Toronto, and I taught there for like a year, and the assignment I got was actually replacing a guy that got beat up by a fifth grader in class, and the guy was like traumatized and stuff or whatever. I'm kind of laughing about it, but it's actually not funny. I mean, you got a fifth grader attacking you, and it's like, what do? You're not allowed to put hands on him. Like they essentially teach you now. You got to like run out of the room. You know, there was an incident last week in Toronto where, no, actually not last week, the week before last. This is how bad it's gotten there now. I mean, you had a freshman walk up to a senior and just blast them in the head in the middle of the school day, all caught on camera and everything. I mean, the system's turned into hell. And I want to bring this back to boxing. We gotta figure out ways to get these kids physically active and to give them an outlet for that kind of competitive spirit that is not drill rap and or the competition being shootings and stabbings and killing one another. Like there's got to be better outlets for it. But unfortunately, all of the outlets that Joe grew up with and you grew up with and I grew up with are gradually being like whittled away, if not all the way gone. You know, especially now with like the pandemic. I mean, it's really bad, unfortunately. Um, and by the way, New York City boxing is not that great either. I mean,
The Golden Gloves.
very limited amount of clubs. The clubs that exist usually cost a lot of money, and a lot of the tournaments and competitions that even kids out here
Hey,
need,
Maestro,
and they need to travel to get to them. Who has money?
Maestro, isn't the Golden Gloves still in New York?
Golden Gloves is still in New York, but what about how you get to the Golden Gloves? You know, back in the day, there used to be police athletic league all over the place. You know, there were way more boxing clubs. I mean, Golden Gloves still exists, but it's not what it used to be. Golden Gloves used to be on television back in the day. That's how big it was. You know,
On
it's
ESPN, I think.
yeah, I mean, it's totally been watered down to the point where it's almost unrecognizable from what it used to be. Here in New York, the Golden Gloves was sponsored by one of the major daily newspapers, the New York Daily News. You know, it was a big deal. This like it's sports in general, including boxing here in this city, has just been decimated, absolutely decimated.
Yeah. I mean, I think boxing, people tend to say, like my brother was saying this the other day, how boxing's dead. It's a nowhere sport. And I just told him, I said, you have to look at the big picture. I said, it is a niche sport, but because of all these platforms and because of the ability to see fights that we never would have been able to see 10, 20 years ago, because of having DAZN, ESPN Plus, and a lot of these other outlets out there. And we see more and more fighters who are making a lot of money now. I think the sport itself has grown, even though it hasn't grown much in the United States. I think worldwide as a whole, I think the sport of boxing on a professional level has gotten big. It's gotten really big. You know, like this weekend, for instance, we have the ability to watch like 3 fight cards. Back in the day, on a weekend, you'd be lucky if you had like 1 fight, and you didn't even get a fight every weekend. Even when boxing was on national television, ABC, NBC, whatever, you got that Saturday afternoon fight, and after that, what else did you have? Once in a while, you'd get a pay-per-view. But now you're watching cards from all over the world. You're not just watching a card that's broadcast on a U.S. network. But by having DAZN and ESPN Plus, we're watching these cards in different countries. We're seeing a lot of UK boxing. Even with ESPN Plus, we're seeing fights in Japan. These were things that we never would have been able to do 10, 15 years ago. You know, and when you look at the money that these guys are making now no one's making Floyd Mayweather money, but sometimes they are, but no one's really making that Floyd Mayweather money consistently. I mean, Canelo's making good money, Joshua's making good money, Fury's making good money, but look at all these other guys who are making good money, like Errol Spence, a guy like Demetrius Andrade, a guy like Devin Haney. 10 years ago, they wouldn't be making what they're making now. The reason why they're making what they're making now is because there's so much money that's being injected into the sport, right? And I think that's a good thing. I think the amateur system is not the greatest, but I think as a whole, professional boxing has gotten more mainstream from a global aspect, and I think that's a good thing.
Joe, do you think it's better? Like, I agree with you, by the way. But do you think it's better that if boxing was like like back in the old days where it's HBO and Showtime. That way, like Showtime was small, HBO was big, and we got the fights that we wanted to see all the time. Whereas now, because there's so many networks, some of these big guys, these stars that we want to see, especially in the lightweight division, they don't fight each other.
There's definitely that creates some roadblocks. But even when there was HBO and Showtime, you still had roadblocks. What it all comes down to is not only the fighters but the promoters. Obviously, if you have a network deal as a promoter, right, then you have to, put your fights on that network. That's the agreement that you have. So that was always there. HBO and Showtime fighters never really fought each other, but you had co-promotions, and you're starting to see co-promotions. You're seeing Fox and ESPN co-promote events, right? We've seen Canelo versus Plant. We've seen Wilder versus Fury, right? So we've seen that, and I think we're going to start seeing it more. I think if it makes sense, then obviously you'll see cross promotions, but that's always been an issue. This isn't something new. And this whole thing about fighters not fighting frequently. Ali fought twice a year. Larry Holmes fought twice a year. Leonard sometimes only fought once a year. Hagler fought twice a year. I think when you reach a certain level and you're fighting a certain level of opposition, you can't fight every 3 months. It's just not possible. And it's not healthy to expect these guys to fight 4 times a year, every year, if they're fighting top level guys.
Yeah, you need an 8 to 10 week camp, and then you need a recovery period after that fight. And you can only do that a certain number of times a year for sure. One thing I want to say about this, Joe, is I was listening to a pretty good interview. I got to give credit where credit's due because, we've both been critical of guys like Mike Coppinger, but I got to give credit to Chris Mannix. He runs an excellent boxing podcast where he interviews people. And he had Richard Schaefer on yesterday's show.
I love Richard Schaefer.
And he gave a tremendous interview where he was explaining the Probellum model. And essentially what Probellum is doing is they're going around the world and signing co-promotional deals with promoters that aren't like the big promoters like Matchroom, Top Rank, Queensberry, etc. And their goal is to create like a network, right, through signing co-promoter deals with smaller promoters to have like a big promotional outfit. I think it's a very interesting model. And what's also interesting to me too is they've got a guy who they've had for a while, Nonito. And because of that, if you think about it, Nonito's gone from World Boxing Super Series, right, to fighting on PBC cards. Let's not forget his last couple of fights have been under the PBC umbrella. He's able to do that because Probellum is not entrenched with any of the major promoters, and then can therefore work with everyone. You'll notice too that he recently signed an agreement with Lou DiBella. So I think it's a very interesting approach to go to Australia, to go to New Zealand, to go to Ghana. He said that he signed an agreement with Ike Corte, who's got a promotional outfit out there, to go all over the world so that you can then make fights with Taken Promotions, with Golden Boy, with Top Rank, with the PBC, with Bob Arum, with Matchroom. I think it's an interesting model. Joe and Penny, what do you think of that?
Well, that's a great idea, but I also want to go back to what little Penny said. The problem was when fighters started signing long-term deals, like they started like that deal with Crawford where he had like a 3-fight deal or whatever. They tried to give Canelo when DAZN had that deal with Canelo was like a 5-6 year deal or whatever. Eddie Hearn does something very smart. He deals with fighters on a fight-to-fight basis. Like Demetrius Andrade, he had him for a couple fights. He had, I think Devin Haney is on a fight-to-fight. Dillian Whyte's on a fight-to-fight. And he doesn't like tying his fighters up either because he wants them to go get the best deal possible. He's always said that about Devin Haney. So I think if you have a guy like Eddie Hearn who looks at the big picture and he says, well, you know what? I'm working with this guy. But if he can go get a bigger fight somewhere else and increase his profile. Then when he comes back to me, he's that much bigger when I work with him. So it only helps me in the long run, right? And that's the thing. A lot of people are short-sighted, not only in boxing but in life, right? So the problem with that, and I think a way of getting around that, is you just don't sign fighters to long-term deals. Sign them to, like back in the day, Bob Arum said this. We used to sign a guy for one or two fight deals, and that was that. The problem he had with Crawford was his own fault. He shouldn't have signed him to such a long-term deal. He guaranteed him mandatory minimums. That was a very bad business move because you gave yourself too much of a situation where you shouldered too much of the financial responsibility, right? You put yourself in a situation where you back yourself up against the wall, which wasn't a good situation because you never knew. And I said this when DAZN signed Canelo, you don't know what's going to be out there 4 or 5 years down the road, even a year down the road. The landscape changes that quickly in the sport of boxing. So to sit there and sign someone to a 6-fight deal, 5-fight deal, there's no way of forecasting what's going to happen. Anything can happen. An upset can happen. Guy can retire. Heaven forbid he gets injured and he can't fight anymore, whatever. So I think by having guys be free agents like Canelo is, Devin Haney's a free agent. Boots Ennis is another young guy. He's not really signed to anybody, but you build business relationships with not just one promoter, not just one network, but you don't throw all your eggs in one basket. And I think as fighters start to take that approach and promoters put themselves in a position where they're on board with that same model, right? Like PBC, for instance, is I think the way that whole thing is set up, where all these guys are signed to Heyman, long-term deals. Technically, Heyman's not a promoter, right? But if you're working with Heyman, you have to be on that PBC network, unless there's a situation where you can go somewhere else. But Heyman has a lot of control over what those guys do in that contract, which my understanding is. But Heyman puts himself in a very unique position because he's not a promoter. He doesn't have to guarantee these guys fights. He doesn't have to guarantee them mandatory minimums. I'm just your advisor, right? So because I'm only your advisor and I'm not your promoter, then I'm not responsible for guaranteeing you a specific amount of fights every year. I'm not in a position where I'm guaranteeing you a specific mandatory minimum purse every year, right? So that's why when you see a lot of these PBC fighters only fighting once a year, first of all, there's too many fighters over there, so it's hard to keep them all active. That's number one. And number two, he put himself in a position where he doesn't have the same responsibilities that a promoter has. He gave himself an easier job. So he made his responsibility less, but the benefit is equally, if not better, than what a promoter would have. So that's why that PBC model is really bad for the sport of boxing, because they're the guys more often than not that don't want to play with others, right? They're the guys that want to keep everything in-house, right? And again, these guys don't have long-term deals in terms of promotional obligations, but they're signed to Al Heyman as an advisor, and you pretty much sign your life away when you sign that Al Heyman deal to some degree, right? So,
yeah, Beebs, I agree with you. And the reason I think one of the evidence that PBC model didn't work is when they had that plethora of talent in the welterweight division, with Pacquiao and Spence and Sean Porter, Keith Thurman. They never had any rematches. They only fought each other once. So to have that much, they should have had trilogies. Kind of like when Pacquiao fought Barrera, Morales, and missing another person. But those guys, they fought 3 or 4 times. That should have happened rather than just fighting each other once. And you had them in the same house. Why couldn't you have a rematch with Thurman and Danny Garcia?
Thurman and Porter, Thurman and Danny Garcia. Spence versus Porter. Was a split decision too. That could have been a rematch. Yeah, you could have had a lot of series of fights.
Is it Beebs? Is it because of the dates? There's not enough dates for Fox and Showtime and
Well, that's a huge problem too, because everyone's saying, why is BBC putting on all these pay-per-views? Well, there's a reason why. It's not out of want, it's out of necessity. Because if Showtime and Fox aren't going to give you those dates, they're not going to give you that time slot, right? And they're not going to give you that date. And they don't want to put up the money. They don't want to invest the money, into giving you that date. And they're going to say, well, if you want the fight, we'll just put it on pay-per-view. You can use our pay-per-view outlet, but we're going to give you less money up front, and you're going to have to retrieve some of that money on the pay-per-view side of it. So the guarantees are less. So they take less of a financial responsibility, and they put more on the promoter. They shoulder more of the financial responsibility, and they don't have to guarantee them the date. It's going to be on pay-per-view. So if you can't get the date and you can't get the guaranteed money up front, and you can't get the guaranteed money up front that the fighter would need, then you have no other recourse but to go to pay-per-view. The problem is that they're so goddamn expensive. If they made them like $40-$50 for some of these fights that really aren't high profile significant fights, then I wouldn't complain as much. But to charge $80, I mean, they did lower the price for certain pay-per-views, but some of the pay-per-views, like what was it, Barrios Thurman, that should never have been $80. That's definitely should have been a
why not
40.
sell them as a package, Joe? Right?
Another good idea.
Sell us a fight pass, and then I won't complain about having to
Yeah.
pay to see Ortiz Martin,
Yeah.
right?
Now,
Or Thurman Barrios if it was part of a bigger package, right? And then they'd also get some upfront money
yeah.
from everyone, and then they'd be able to schedule better fights, kind of like a UFC fight pass.
Now, some of these smaller fights, or some of these fighters with other fighters who make less money than some of the other guys, like you see a lot of fights on the lower weight classes on Showtime, right? Because those guys don't make as much, so Showtime will give them the date sometimes because they can put up a little less money for that, and they'll throw them the date. But to put Errol Spence on Showtime and give him, these guys are used to making a certain amount of money, right? So to put them on Showtime and try to pay them what they want to make, it's just too much money for Showtime. It's just too much money for Fox. Like Fox can afford it, but why would they invest that much money? And if they're not going to get that much in return, they're not going to get the viewership that they feel they need to justify putting out that type of money. So again, proof, you go out there and put it on pay-per-view. You guys promote it. You guys earn it. You guys do the blunt of the grunt work here. You do the bulk of the work here. You shoulder the responsibility.
So a few years ago, Joe, I never told you this, but I dated a woman briefly who worked for Fox Sports, and her job actually at Fox Sports was specifically to sell advertising space to corporations that wanted to advertise on Fox during Fox Sports programs. She told me also that it was very difficult. Her main difficulty with boxing was the fact that a lot of corporations didn't want to advertise during boxing because they didn't think that boxing had the demographic that they wanted to sell to. So for a long time, I don't know if you've noticed this, a lot of other people have as well, not just me, but you'd see commercials for the hose that like helps you clean your siding and like your aluminum wheels and shit, or a grilling machine that you could use or whatever product, but not always like the major product that you'd assume to see, like a major car manufacturer or a beverage company that wasn't a beer company, a national food chain, that kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah. So
yeah.
so
Because
the scope.
boxing, sorry, Beebs, because boxing is not like the NBA or the NFL. It's not what it used to be. Because I think society is too superficial now. Because like for example, just in New Zealand, but boxing is a sport where like it should be banned. Like because it's too brutal. They see it as like bullfighting. Maestro, you've been to Spain or to Madrid?
Yeah, I've been. I'm not a big fan of bullfighting. I'm actually a
Me
vegan.
neither.
I don't condone the indiscriminate abuse of animals for no reason. Um, using animals as entertainment is not really something that I'm ever gonna agree with, especially if at the end of it you're killing the animal. And I mean, in bullfighting, these animals are drugged and all kinds of things. It's like it's not even a fair fight, you know. But yeah, but here's my issue with that. What about rugby? I mean, it's pretty violent sport. There's a significant amount of head trauma in rugby.
Yeah,
Um,
true.
Although it's less than gridiron tackle football, which we play over here, more than rugby, it's actually safer than that. The helmet and the padding gives people a very false sense of security, and it actually doesn't stop your brain from rattling inside your skull, which is actually what causes concussions. And also, the way people tackle in rugby is a lot safer than gridiron football. But the fact is, it's still a sport that can lead to some injury. Believe it or not, I mean, even football, soccer, um, can be quite dangerous at times, which is why a lot of places were trying to ban heading the ball with kids, because that's been shown to lead to significant concussions, especially
But
with girls.
Maestro,
Yeah,
apart from Tecate, Corona Extra, DeWalt Tools.
yeah.
Look, I remember Budweiser even used to sponsor boxing, but they don't do it anymore.
Not for a long time.
Yeah, even Nike. The last time Nike sponsored boxing was Pacquiao, Mosley, and then even before that, maybe some of the Roy Jones's fights. But no, in
Well,
terms
they
of
sponsored Jordan. Jordan sponsored Roy Jones Jr. They weren't
sorry,
sponsoring the
Jordan,
fight.
sorry, yeah,
Yeah, they weren't. Well, it's still Nike, but they weren't sponsoring the fight. They were sponsoring the athlete.
yeah,
Under Armour isn't sponsoring boxing; they're sponsoring Anthony Joshua. You know what I mean?
yeah.
You're right. Like, major corporations have kind of pulled back a bit from boxing, which is why I think the subscription model is one that could work. Um, Again, going back to the interview with Chris Mannix and Richard Schaefer, Richard Schaefer was making the point that, having had the experience of someone who went out to try to get sponsorships, that the challenge for him was getting it done on a fight by fight by fight basis, right? So every fight, you're going back to the sponsor, trying to get them to sponsor the new fight. And what he says he's doing with Probellum, and he said in the next month, a month and a half, he's going to be announcing the biggest corporate sponsorship in the history of the sport. I was like, wow, okay, let's see that happen. What he was saying is essentially, because now, as Probellum, he's going to be able to sell a package of 200 plus cards per year, that he will be able to bring in major sponsors. Because according to him, major sponsors, like, they don't want to sponsor things on a fight by fight basis, like a Coca-Cola or Ford Motor Company. And it kind of makes sense, because if you look at sponsorship rights in other sports, I mean, sponsors are signing multiple year contracts in the billions of dollars
Yeah.
to do English Premier League, or to do the UEFA Champions League, or to do
Cricket,
F1 or whatever. They're not
cricket,
doing it on a game by game basis. You know what I mean?
yeah.
The NBA here too. Like, it's like XYZ company is the official sponsor of the NBA for XYZ reason. That's done on a multiple year contract. That's not done on a game by game basis, which is literally how boxing's been doing it.
But Maestro, I don't think boxing is a sport where it needs sponsorship, because of the pay-per-view model and the fact that a lot of these casinos, they need boxing, because boxing is such like I don't think boxing will never die. It's kind of like prostitution. It will never die because it's got a need. Like, boxing has a need. Like, a lot of these casinos, they have to have boxing to let the whales come in, because a lot of these people, like people with money, they want to see bullfights. They want to see boxing because it's an adrenaline rush. So I don't think, in terms of like sponsorship, no, I don't. Into Beeps, when in terms of like the revenue, when you like say them, we were talking about the numbers before. In terms of the pie, it's mainly the pay-per-view buys, right? Probably accounts for 85% of the revenue, and then maybe the gate. The sponsorship is very small, right?
Yeah, but according to Schaefer, the reason the sponsorship's small is because they're doing it on a fight by fight basis. And he thinks, look, I'm all about the fighters getting paid, and whatever extra revenue can come in that goes to the fighter. I think
Yeah.
that that's a good thing, right? So if you can get, an injection of hundreds of millions of dollars, if not maybe even, you know, billions, who knows? I mean, I'm waiting to hear who this sponsor is and what they're bringing to the table. At the end of the day, that money does go to the fighters, at least a big share of it. So if they can bring in more, I'm all for it. But his explanation of doing everything on a fight by fight basis being difficult, I definitely see why that would be the case. And I don't only think it would be difficult, I think that it's a tremendous waste of time. If when you're supposed to be promoting a fight, every fight you're going to sponsors trying to get a sponsor for the fight. I mean, wouldn't it be better to spend that time promoting your fighter?
Yep.
Yeah. I definitely get it, man. Definitely get it.
Lil Penny, check the private chat. I'm interested
Sorry?
in this. Check the private chat. I just asked you a question.
Check the private jets. So what private jet?
Private chat in StreamYard.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry.
It's all good. mean,
I don't know.
that's-
Yeah, I don't know. I think that just comes up automatically. Because I was in another chat with H Money and it also came up. And everyone had it. It's hashtag MOB. Everyone had it. I think it comes up automatically.
Okay. Got it.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, that's funny. No.
Joe, can you go to the wide angle, Joe? Because my head is like half off the screen.
What's the wide angle? This?
No, the other one.
This?
No, it's
This?
it's like right beside this one. It's gonna no.
Yeah, you got my whole kitchen.
Go through all of them. Go through all of them. Joe's fixing. No. I think it's to the left, Joe. To the left. No, that's just you. It's similar to this. Oh, I'm gonna go into mine and tell you exactly which one it is. Personally, I'm a fan of the wide.
Yeah, I'm not even sure if I have it. I should have it, right?
Yeah, everybody has it. I'll tell you which one.
Gotta clean my kitchen. Damn.
No, not that one. Or it's third from the left at the bottom of the screen. Third from the left.
1, 2, 3. It's not this one?
No. That's fourth from the left. Third from the left.
This is fourth from the left?
The one, you've got the one that's just you, then you've got two people side by side, then you've got another one with two people side by side, but it's a wide one. Third from the left. Actually, this is it. Sorry, that was it. That was it.
It's this one.
No, it was the last one. You were right. It was the last one, third from the left. But
You like this one?
I would. I like the wide angle, but it's different when it's three people, so it's fine. I forgot that it's three people. So it's a little bit different.
I actually like this. I like this one the best.
This is the one I like the most. This is the wide angle. The last one. That's the wide angle.
This one is the one I like.
The one with all three of us the same size.
Yeah, this one's easier.
Yeah.
I always tell Eric to use this one, but he likes this one.
Yeah, I like this one. This is the one I like.
This is the one I like the most.
Yeah, I like this one. This is the one I like. Wow.
Let me see if I could put like a nice background on there. Let me see. I think I got a background for this. Let me see what happens if I put a background up. Do something like that. I could put this up there.
So picks for today, beating the odds with Beeb. I didn't get a beating the odds with Beeb.
Yeah, I'm wondering, does Catterall
go the distance?
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm having a hard time with that one. If he goes the distance or not, something tells me he's probably gonna go the distance, and I think it's going to be like a 9-3, 8-4 type fight for Taylor. I think you should win 9-3 type fight.
It's a big fight in Edinburgh here.
Yeah, it's a big fight. It's going to be on Sky. Is that going to be on
Edinburgh or in Glasgow?
It's in Glasgow.
I thought it was in Glasgow.
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah, Costco, yeah. I didn't like that chokehold on by Catterall though. It seemed a little weak. Like he should have choked him like what Mayweather did to Ortiz. Remember that?
Yeah, it looked like he was like he wanted to do it, but then he kind of pulled back a little bit.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
you're
man.
right.
I didn't see the weigh-in. I gotta watch this now.
Oh, the weigh-in's pretty good, man.
Oh, what,
Taylor looked good. He looked good at the weigh-in.
do
Oh,
you think he
so
should do you think he should move up, Beeps? Like I hear that the WBO is like giving him a pathway to fight Crawford.
yeah,
Where
they'll
you know
make they'll
if you're
make
the champ-
him super champion. Let me
yeah,
So,
yeah.
they'll definitely make him super champion. He's
because
undisputed.
he's undisputed.
What do you think the seating capacity for this arena is off the top of your guys' head? I just looked it up.
The seating
50,000?
capacity, I'm gonna say 20,000.
14,300.
Oh really? What?
Is it sold out?
It's a good question. I don't know if it's sold out. I mean, it does look like a beautiful facility.
And Ben Shalom, who's part of Boxer, is promoting this event.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say this. I think that Josh Taylor versus Terrence Crawford's going to be next after this.
If I was managing Josh Taylor, I would not recommend that he do that.
You don't think he should fight him next?
No. I mean, if I was managing Terrence Crawford, I'd be trying to get that fight for sure.
What would you do? What would you do with Josh Taylor if you were him? Did you keep him at 140?
I keep him at 140. He says he's not having any trouble making the weight. I mean,
Well,
140 got a lot of good fighters, and then you've got people that are going to be moving up from 135 eventually.
you know what I think you may see before you see the Crawford fight? Maybe a Teofimo fight.
Mm.
Yeah, that's if Teofimo gets a couple wins under his belt. Because right now, I don't necessarily see why you'd fight him.
I think Maestro, I think the weight mattered against Kambosos. I think he was struggling to make weight. I think at 140 he'd be more comfortable.
Yeah, many things.
He might be more comfortable, but I still think he needs a big win at 140. I mean, why should he get a Josh Taylor fight coming off a loss?
He should fight Jose Cepeda first.
Yeah, I mean, would you favor Teofimo over I don't know what's I mean,
Cepeda or Josh Taylor?
I was thinking about names at 140 that like over Ramirez. I think that's a good fight. Ramirez Lopez. Both guys coming off losses. You know?
He
I think that's a really good fight. Ramirez
Regis Prograis.
Regis Prograis, that's another good fight. That's another Probellum fighter, by the way. You know. So he's open to be able to fight guys in different weight classes. You know.
I wonder, Maestro, I wonder if Richard Schaefer regrets leaving Golden Boy because he was in a pretty good position.
He had no choice, man.
Wasn't it his decision to leave?
No. Once
All right.
Once that whole thing happened with Al Heyman, he blamed De La Hoya thought that Schaefer was complicit in that. He was like thought he was working alongside with yeah.
I mean, he was working alongside Al Heyman, but I mean, not to take sides here. To me, that was when like Golden Boy was at its biggest peak.
Yeah.
The problem with that situation, according to what Schaefer said, and I think even De La Hoya said this, is they were going to sell Golden Boy, I thought, and then he changed his mind.
Yeah, I mean, they were positioning Golden Boy to be sold for a lot of money. I think that's what Schaefer was trying to do. I mean, he wasn't a banker. He was all about the numbers. And at that time, I mean, they were promoting Mayweather fights. They were promoting Wilder. They were promoting Canelo. They were promoting a lot of big fighters in the sport.
And as soon as Schaefer left, no one wanted to deal with Golden Boy. Like
Danny Garcia when he was champion. I mean,
all them PBC fighters left.
All of the PBC, yeah.
Floyd left. So, you know. And here's the thing. How big of a part is De La Hoya in that whole operation? Is he just is he just a figurehead? I think Eric Gomez does most of the work over there, and I think when Schaefer was over there, he did most of the work too. Because like De La Hoya wasn't even going to events, he wasn't going to press conferences, he wasn't really even doing anything. You know,
No.
he
No,
just he just had the name. He's like a figurehead.
you got some mosquitoes there, little Penny?
Yeah, yeah.
So,
I fucking hate mosquitoes.
So do you live in New Zealand or do you live in the UK, little Penny?
New Zealand.
You live in New Zealand. So is it always hot over there? Or does it get cold?
No, man, it's cold here.
Gets cold over there too?
We're in the southern hemisphere, man. We're right at the bottom. It's cold. It doesn't snow, but it's always cold.
What degree, what temperature is it over there right now?
Sorry?
Well, what's the temperature over there right now?
Well, it's at night.
In Celsius.
It's about maybe it's a summer at the moment, so maybe 25, 24 degrees.
So that's like low 70s in Fahrenheit, Joe.
Okay, yeah.
Low 70s,
but it gets cold here, man.
Yeah.
Guess what it is over here?
Beeps, where do you live? I know Master lives in New York. Where do you live?
I live in the Boston area.
Are you from Cincinnati?
No, that's Eric.
Eric.
Oh, okay.
It was -1 here last time I checked the weather, little bit. -1.
Oh, it's 15 degrees over here right now.
Whoa, that's even colder. That's like minus 10.
Hey, Beebs, how come you don't have a Boston accent?
He does. Thick one.
You do?
I do sometimes. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I don't. I think I've lost it a little bit over the years. I never say car. I say car.
When he's talking about Ray Donovan, it all comes out. He can't help it.
Like I don't say Boston. I don't say certain words. Like he says I say sure. He says sure. I don't talk. I lost a lot of it. You know what it was? I traveled a lot. Like I lived in Germany, and when I went in the military. When I went in the military, I was spent some time in the South. You know,
Bavaria.
I thought it was all that time you were spending on Mass Ave in Cambridge with the Harvard people.
Oh, the Harvard people
eating Indian food off Mass Ave in Cambridge.
Yeah, no, but So you think I have a Boston accent?
It comes. You know when it comes out when you get heated. You
get mad. When I get mad. Yeah.
My wife's mom's side is from the Boston area, from South Boston.
I've been to Boston,
like Roxbury and stuff. And when she watched you, she immediately knew you were from Boston.
I've been to Boston. I was there for I think 3 days. My hotel was near the Red Sox baseball stadium. What's that called again?
Fenway Park.
Yeah, Fenway Park. Yeah, I could actually walk it, and I saw the Red Sox play. I think it was I can't remember what, Colorado Rockies, I think.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and Boston's kind of cool. It reminds me a little of
it's a small New York.
Yeah, it's small. Yeah, I even went to Harvard.
Here's the problem with Boston. This is my biggest complaint about Boston. And people say this all the time. Because when it was designed for horse and buggies. Because the roads are so small and narrow, right? There's so many goddamn one-way streets in Boston. When you go to New York, there's no one-way streets. You can go.
Oh, no, Joe, that's not true. The avenues and the streets are all one ways.
I didn't find that when I was there. I like not as bad as here.
You have a couple that run in both directions, like Park Avenue, but Broadway is one way for most of it. And like if you look at the numbered streets, so like First Avenue all the way to the end on the other side of Manhattan, they run north and then they run south, and they run north and then they run south.
They're all one ways.
Yes, and in the streets, they're all one ways for the most part, except for like 34th Street and 125th.
Yeah, I used to go there.
42nd Street. They run. Every time they switch, they go from east to west, east to west, east to west. That's why I was surprised, though, Penny, when you were saying you got lost. I don't know how you could get lost.
Well, it's really hard to get lost in New York because all the streets are numbered.
They're numbered. I mean, if somebody says meet me at at First Avenue and 23rd Street, it's like impossible not to know how to get there.
No, because I've only been there once, and it's like when you go to a certain area once, it's hard, and there's so many streets as well. And I didn't know the difference between downtown and uptown and midtown. So what the?
So I used to go to Manhattan a lot, and I just I used to go to Manhattan. I used to go to Times Square.
Now Queens, I could see how you could get lost in Queens because they have like a lot of numbered streets, but then it's weird. Like they'll have like two versions of 275th Street, and it's very difficult to navigate through Queens if you're not used to it. But
hey,
Bronx very easy, and Manhattan definitely easy. Brooklyn kind of difficult a little bit if you're not used to it, but the Bronx and Manhattan super easy to get around.
What about Strong Island?
Long Island. The issue with Long Island, like Queens, for those of you who don't know, like Nassau County was actually supposed to be in New York City. I believe it used to be part of Queens County, and then it became like its own thing, and it's now Nassau County. Nassau County and Suffolk County and also Queens County, they all used to be little towns, right? And in Nassau County, you also have villages and hamlets too. So it's every time you go to a new place, you're in a new town, like almost like England. So it can definitely be much more confusing than like just Manhattan or the Bronx or Brooklyn, because it's like every little thing is a small town.
What's up, Maestro?
I've been to a few cities like Paris and Rome and Berlin and Helsinki in Finland. Even Las Vegas and Los Angeles. But I've got to say, New York to me was the best city that I've ever visited in terms of entertainment. Just in terms of entertainment, like it's nothing could top it. Like when you go to Paris, there's like
Paris is great.
Yeah, but the thing is, with New York has more to offer than Paris, because Paris is mainly just museums and like.
It's a nice city to walk around in, though. It's one of the best cities.
But what New York has everything, though. It's got like the theater, it's got sports. Paris doesn't have sports. Like it's got like I just found that like I just felt alive.
I wouldn't say they don't have sports. I mean, they got PSG over there, bro. They got Neymar and Messi right now.
Yeah, but sports is not like
not the same. It's not the same. Come on, Maestro.
Yeah, it's not the same. Yeah.
No, but it's not the same. But if you want to talk about sports, and London kicks New York City's ass, it's not even close.
Here's the odds here for
look at the amount of football clubs, little Penny, in London: Arsenal, Tottenham, West Ham, Crystal Palace, Fulham, Chelsea. I mean, you could go on, and you even got smaller clubs like Queens Park Rangers and Charlton. Not to mention rugby is over there. Not to mention cricket.
Maestro,
and here's a big one. There's no athletics here in New York City. New York City can't even host an Olympic Games because they don't have a big stadium with a track. I mean, athletics is a big sport. They don't have it here. They have that in London. They also have that in Paris too. In fact, Paris has two stadiums.
What about Boston? We have it in Boston too, don't we?
Where's the track stadium in Boston? I mean, there's no equivalent of the Bird's Nest actually anywhere in the entire United States. There's no big stadium with the track around it.
Hey, Biebs, speaking of Boston, I've always felt sorry for Nomar Garciaparra because he was there for so long, and then when he left, right, he got traded away, then Boston started winning championships. Oh, man, I felt so sorry for that guy. And it was such a nice guy, too.
Now, we have a rich history of winning over here, right?
Since when?
The Celtics,
the Patriots.
Oh, no, sorry, I was talking about baseball.
The Celtics, the Bruins, too. The Bruins,
the original 60. I was talking about baseball.
Let's Google the most winning. The
Yankees, man. The Yankees have most 27, 28 championships.
Oh.
I don't count a lot of those though, Penny. You know why?
What, dude? That was the
a lot of those, and I'm not just saying this because I like the Mets more than the Yankees. I'm saying it because a lot of those championships were won when black people weren't allowed in Major League Baseball.
Oh yeah. Yeah, of course.
They have big asterisks on those.
Yeah.
You can't compare those championships to championships post integration.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. But Maestro, back in the 20s when Babe Ruth was around, did you
Yeah,
know that Jack Dempsey was more popular than him back in the 20s?
yeah, boxing was huge back then.
Yeah.
I mean, boxing. I mean, you want to talk about the baddest man on the planet? Like back then, you were the heavyweight champion. Like you were the top dog everywhere in the world. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Movie stars. Like, come on now, this is the heavyweight champ of the world. There.
And Maestro, speaking of that, the guy that gave Jack Johnson a title shot at the heavyweight division was an Australian.
Yes.
He fought down here.
Yeah, he did.
The Yankees won 35 World Series.
Oh, 35. Man, that's a lot.
The most
35.
winning. Here's the most winning states in America. New York is number one. They won 35 major baseball.
The Knicks too. The Knicks won too.
They got four NBA titles, 5 NFL titles, and 8 NHL titles.
Yeah.
This is old. I think this is old though because they don't have.
The Knicks only won 2 NBA championships.
Well, here's the other thing about New York, Lil Penny. They claim to have 2 football teams, but they don't. Those 2 football teams are in New Jersey. The only NFL.
Oh, this is from 2018 though, so this isn't recent.
Yeah. The Patriots have won since then. The only New York football, the only football team, a gridiron NFL tackle football team in New York State is actually in Buffalo, the Bills. The Jets and the Giants both play in New Jersey.
I can't find anything.
And honestly, it's actually quite difficult to get there from where I live because I don't have a car. Plus, I don't even really like the NFL.
All right, here it is. Here it is. I got an updated one. So New York is number one, 35 World Series, 4 NBA titles, 9 NFL titles, 8 NHL titles, 6 Major League Soccer titles. Wow, I didn't know that. Jesus. So there's 60
New York Red Bulls from when Thierry Henry was playing with the New York Red Bulls.
So they have 6.
And they just won last season's one too, the New York. But that was New York Red Bulls, and they play in New Jersey. So it's interesting. It's interesting that New Jersey doesn't get credit for those wins that New York does, because technically New York only has 1 MLS title, the one from this last year when the New York City FC won the title.
So they have 62 championships. We have 40 championships. We have 10 Major League Baseball. Look at this. 17 NBA. We have 6 Super Bowls. We have 7 NHLs. And we have 0 Major League Soccer. But here's the problem. You guys have 2 NFL teams. You had 2. What do you have? What do you have for New York Rangers? Is there only one NHL team in New York?
New York Rangers and New York Islanders.
New York Islanders. You have two NHL teams, right? How many NBA teams do you have? You have the New York Knicks. That's it, right?
Knicks
and the Brooklyn Nets.
Brooklyn Nets.
See, it's not fair. You guys have like two teams in every freaking.
Bro, you understand that Brooklyn is bigger than Boston, right? I'm pretty sure.
And then in baseball, you have how many teams? You got the Mets. You got the Yankees.
But there also used to be the Dodgers and the Giants too, which would be counted.
Yeah, so this isn't a fair comparison.
It's not, but also like I said, Queens is bigger than Queens on its own is bigger than Boston. As is Brooklyn, as is Manhattan, and I'm pretty sure the Bronx is bigger than Boston too.
Guess who's number 3?
Right, it's not fair.
Guess who's number 3?
Los Angeles.
Nope.
3.
Dallas?
Nope. Chicago.
Oh, of course.
Oh, the Bulls.
It's also the third. It's also the third largest city, so it should be 3.
The Bulls and
Los Angeles. Actually, I apologize. Chicago and Los Angeles are tied for 3rd. It's a tie. Sorry.
So, Joe, the population of, and it would be interesting to run the numbers based on population because I'm sure Boston would probably be number one. Boston only has 675,000 people, 676 if you round it up. You know what the Bronx's population is? Sorry, 685 in Boston by the most recent numbers. The Bronx's population alone is 1.435 million. So the Bronx alone has over twice the population of Boston, and that's just one borough, right?
Boston's
Queens,
not even
Queens,
in the top 10 for population.
Joe, Queens has 2.287 million. Just
Wow.
Queens, just Queens. Okay, Brooklyn's population. All right, Brooklyn's population is let me tell you right now. Brooklyn's population is 2.59 million. So all of these cities are multiple times as big as Boston. So Boston is pound for pound number one.
Yeah, based on that. Hey, Maestro, I hear Brooklyn now because back then in the 80s, Brooklyn was like, it wasn't a nice place to stay. I hear Brooklyn now is
Some parts of Brooklyn. Yeah.
I hear Brooklyn now is an affluent city or suburb. Is that
It's
true?
not a suburb; it's a city.
Oh, city, yeah. Like it's an
But
affluent.
technically, it's a borough in Manhattan. But if it was its own city, it would be one of the biggest cities in the United States. So it's not. A lot of people think Brooklyn is a neighborhood. No, Brooklyn's got like almost 3 million people. It's a city, and like any city, it's going to have its affluent areas, right? Like Park Slope, right? Like Cobble Hill, right? Like downtown Brooklyn in general. It has other affluent areas too, but then it's obviously going to have its rough parts, like East New York, like Brownsville, where Mike Tyson's from, where Shannon Briggs is from, where Danny Jacobs is from, and then it's but what's happened is areas that used to be kind of rough, like Crown Heights, are now like very gentrified. Same with like Bedford Stuyvesant, where Biggie Smalls is from. Bed-Stuy is like a very expensive area now. Like the homes in Bed-Stuy are like multi-million-dollar homes.
My pick for my recommended bet for today is Josh Taylor by decision at a plus 140. That's the most likely scenario here. Who was better, Shaq or Hakeem? 70% said Shaq. That's blasphemous.
That's ridiculous.
Hakeem,
Look at Shaq and Hakeem went head to head in the finals, and Shaq got absolutely destroyed by the Dream Shake.
Well, here's the problem.
That's ridiculous.
With Shaq,
That's absolutely ridiculous.
How many rings does Shaq have? 4?
Yeah, but how many of them were with Kobe? How many of them were with Kobe? Hakeem never had a Kobe Bryant playing with him.
True.
Hakeem never had a Kobe.
Shaq won 1 in Miami and 3 in LA, right?
Yeah, and in Miami he had players too. So look, if anyone needs to understand what I'm saying, look at the NBA Finals when the Orlando Magic played the Houston Rockets. He got absolutely destroyed. Shaq wouldn't even agree with this poll.
Oh, he
Hey,
wouldn't.
Maestro, is it fair to say that Shaquille probably underachieved his career? Like, I thought he should have won more based on his dominance.
You realize that I agree because he didn't keep himself in the best shape later on in his career, especially. But do you understand? People here don't even understand. There's triple doubles, there's quadruple doubles, and then there's what are they called? Quintuple doubles.
Yeah.
Hakeem had multiple quintuple doubles in his games, which is unheard of in the modern era. That means in a single game, he'd get over 10 rebounds, over 10 blocks, points, assists, and steals. I mean, it's incredible. See, this is just showing you how underrated Hakeem Olajuwon is.
Hakeem averaged career
in the history of the NBA.
Hakeem averaged career-wise 21.8 points a game, 11.1 rebounds a game, 3.1 blocks a game, and his free throw percentage was .712. Now let's look at Shaq.
Man. The blocks 3.1 for his career.
Yeah.
What did Shaq average in blocks? I bet it's not even that much. Maybe
Let's look at Shaq's career averages here. Where the fuck is it? Okay, here they
Career
are.
averages, he's going to have more points. I'm talking about head to head when they win.
No, I agree with you. I think Hakeem's a more skilled player, and you're exactly right. Oh, these numbers are very comparable, though.
That's what I'm saying.
23.7 for Shaq.
Mhm.
Blocks, let me see, are
Maybe
2.3.
2.1. Okay, yep.
And here's the big difference:
That's
rebounds.
a significant difference statistically in blocks.
Yeah.
And look
Yes,
at look at the rebounds. 10.9.
So
Wow.
lower in rebounds to Hakeem. Look up steals.
Yes.
And here's the thing too: he played more seasons than Hakeem too.
Yep.
How many seasons did he play total? 8, 12.
You know what,
16,
Maestro Beeps,
he played 20. He played 20 seasons, right? Olajuwon only played 17. No, 18. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but Hakeem probably played more minutes though.
Let's look at games.
Hakeem never had Kobe. It's as simple as that.
Hey Maestro, I think Hakeem's legacy would have been different if
If he
Ralph
was born in the United
Sampson.
States and wasn't Muslim with the name Hakeem Olajuwon, yes, Penny, I agree.
Here's a monster statistic. Look at this monster statistic right here for Hakeem. Field goal percentage, 5.13. Let's look at
his efficiency scores are through the roof. Hakeem
Shaquille's
Olajuwon.
probably 57%, right?
Oh, this is a monster field goal percentage for Shaq.
57, 58, something like that.
0.582. Penny, you're pretty smart here. You know your stats, Daddy.
Yeah, I used to follow basketball a lot. But I'm not sure what I was saying.
That's a great field goal percentage.
Yeah, it is. Masha, what I was saying before, I think Hakeem's legacy would have been different had Ralph Sampson been fit.
The
Because he
original
was on
Twin
his
Tower, yes.
yeah, he was on his way to becoming a great player himself. They just needed some guards, and I'm sure they could have gotten that.
I agree.
Who's got the highest field goal percentage in the NBA?
Probably Will
Bob
Chamberlain.
Lanier. Bob
Highest
Lanier.
career.
Or maybe Elvin Hayes. Those guys, like those guys.
Actually, yeah, you're right. I'll be right back.
Okay, let's look. Let's look and see who has the highest field goal percentage.
Maybe DeAndre Jordan. DeAndre Jordan's field goal percentage is
DeAndre Jordan is the best of all time.
It's like 60% or something like that,
60.
right?
This guy is like a encyclopedia when it comes to the NBA. 0.6738. He has the highest.
Oh man, that's huge.
I don't even know some of these guys. Rudy Gobert. Do you know who Rudy Gobert is?
Yeah, man. He plays for Utah Jazz. Rudy Gobert.
Rudy Gobert?
Yeah, it's Gobert.
Is he a recent player?
Yeah, he's active.
Why is he in there right now? He's not. Oh, yeah, he has to be in there because I was going to say, why is he in there if he's not retired? But I don't know. Oh, I know who Rudy Gobert is. That's right. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Clint. See, you know what it is, Penny? I stopped watching the NBA, man.
Yeah, I did too. Hey, Beebs, I do as well. I
stopped watching it.
I can't watch the NBA at the moment because of these 3-pointers. Man, it's so boring to watch, man. Even the highlights are boring.
I used to watch the NBA. I still like basketball, but I used to love watching basketball.
Yeah,
I used
man.
to watch it all the time.
The 90s to me were the best, man. The 90s. Oh my God.
Do you think those Bulls teams are better than the Celtics and Lakers teams of the 80s?
Yes, I do. Because of Jordan and Pippen, they were just two alpha males that could do half-court press, a full-court press. And also, Jordan was highly a clutch player. Like, only Larry Bird can probably match him. But I thought that Michael was a better clutch player than Bird because he can create his own shot, like, better than Larry Bird. And Michael will always keep you in the game. He will always, and when it comes down to the end, the last 2 minutes, Michael will just take over. And there's no other, like Magic couldn't do that. That's something that Magic couldn't do. And plus Kareem, he couldn't do that either because you have to give the ball to Kareem. So whereas Jordan, he had the ball in his hands all the time. Like he had it at half court.
What about that 1983 76ers teams? That was one of my favorite teams too.
Yeah, but they didn't have a longevity though. They only won one.
They only won one. But you know who I liked? I was a huge Moses Malone fan. I used to love his game. He was a strong power player, but he had soft hands too.
Yeah, I don't know why the Sixers traded him for a nobody. They traded him for a nobody.
I don't know what happened.
I think they traded him for Ruland, Jeff Ruland. Oh my God, what a bad trade that was.
Wasn't that the game? That was the series where Kareem got hurt and Magic had to play center in that series.
No, that was in 1980.
Oh, was that 1980? Oh, okay, yeah, because they beat the Sixers in the 1980 too, right?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Yeah. But Beebs, the team that everyone thinks that
this kid's an encyclopedia.
Hey Beebs, the team that everyone thinks that can beat the Bulls was the Golden State Warriors team, the 2017, where they had Durant. I don't think that Golden State team can beat the Bulls, man. Because that Jordan's like Jordan can guard Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson can't guard Jordan, right? Pippen can guard Durant. Now the underlying thing here is probably Steph. If Steph played in 96, he won't get those 3-pointers because there's hand checking. Like he's not going to average 32 points or he won't even average 25. He'll probably only average maybe 22, 21 because of hand checking. You know what I mean, Beebs?
Yeah. Yeah. List of who had the most wins in a season? Was it that Bulls? They had 72 wins?
No, Golden State Warriors.
Golden State had 73?
Yeah. But they lost, though. That doesn't count. They lost to the Cavs.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah. They had 73 wins.
Yeah, but
they lost in the NBA Finals.
Yeah. Whereas the Bulls, it does count because they won against Seattle.
And that's why you were saying would that team beat the Bulls? There's no fucking way that team would have beat the Bulls.
No. But that was without Durant, though. No, Beebs, that team was without Durant. The ones that people are talking about is the one with Durant, where they won 2 championships against the Cavs.
They wouldn't beat the Bulls.
No, I wouldn't either. No. Because
you know what the problem was for teams if they played the Bulls? The one thing the Bulls did so great, not only the scoring, they were such a monstrous defense. Like Scottie Pippen and Rodman, so good defensively.
Yes.
No, like they could. And Jordan was a great defender too.
Yeah. He was the best perimeter defender. That's why they call him Black Cat. They used to call him Black Cat because he would Pippen would double team, and then Jordan would hover in the weak side, and then if they pass it to the weak side, Jordan would steal it all the time. Because Jordan's steals average is really high for a guard.
Let's look at like Jordan's stats from a defensive standpoint.
It's good, man. It's really good.
I'll tell you one.
Number one, LeBron. Go ahead.
Good.
I was just gonna say number 1, LeBron. Number 2, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Oh no, man!
And then it's everybody else. And then it's everybody else.
But dude,
Jordan was by far the best player of all time.
By far.
Jordan had Pippen. Jordan had Rodman. Jordan had.
Cut it out.
Pippen is
Jordan had Bill Wennington, bro. Jordan had Bill Wennington. Come on, and Steve Kerr. Come on now, dog. Get Luke Longley, fam.
I
was just giving the argument of the Jordan haters.
Jordan averaged 2.3 steals a game. That's a great statistic.
Yeah, man.
Jordan was a great defender.
Didn't he lead the league in steals 1 year?
A lot of times, not just one time. A lot of times.
It was all defensive, like 10 years in a row or something like that. And I know Kobe had the same thing, but the last 3 or 4 all defensive spots for Kobe, they were more like he didn't really deserve that. It was more like his reputation. Whereas with Jordan, he actually earned those all defensive teams.
Yeah. So look, there was some talk earlier about New York City, right? So I want to give everyone a ringside reporter discount if they're thinking about visiting New York City. You're going to go to not YouTube. You're going to go to Airbnb.com, and you're going to use the ringside reporter promo code to get yourselves 20% off your New York City stays. All right. You're going to go to
Well,
airbnb.com/Yankees. All right. Use the code Ringside Reporter for 20% off.
so Jordan averaged 30.1 game, like 1 points a game. That's incredible.
That's the highest ever.
That's the highest ever.
And in the playoffs, it increases. Whereas a lot of great players, when they go to the playoffs, their averages goes down.
He only played 15 seasons too.
Yeah. But he played 3 years in college, though. So it's that kind of like disadvantages him.
Let me see the rebounds. How many rebounds did Jordan? Like Jordan got a lot of rebounds
Probably
for
about six or seven. Probably 6. I'll go with 6.
this guy's an encyclopedia. 6.2.
Yeah, there you go.
Let me find out you have the Google open.
No.
I'm just kidding. Here's another.
I used to. I'm not actually a Chicago Bulls fan. I'm a Los Angeles Lakers fan. So I actually hated Jordan when I was growing up because even though I was a Lakers fan, I also liked I like big guards like Magic, Penny Hardaway, Steve Smith, Walt Williams, those sort of guys. You know.
Here's another phenomenal statistic. Field goal percentage.
49, 48
50.
for Jordan. Wow.
Yeah, 50.09.
That's pretty good, man. For a shooting guard.
And look at this. Free throw percentage.
75?
No. 0.835.
Wow. It's pretty good.
I want to look at Larry Bird's free throw percentage. I think it was 89.
Yeah, it would be pretty high, man. You know, he doesn't get enough credit for how good Larry Bird, man. That guy was good, man. I think it was better than Magic, to be honest with you, in his prime.
I was a huge Magic fan. He was a great player.
Yeah, same here. But I thought Larry Bird was better. He was a better player. He was definitely better clutch player. That's for sure.
They were different. Here's the problem I have with comparing players like that. They played totally different positions and had different roles and had different skills.
Yeah, true.
So it all depends on what you're looking at. It's like when people compare, I don't know, Shaq to like who's better, Shaq or Allen Iverson, skill wise. I mean, it's very difficult to do that. You know,
this is a great stat for Bird. Look at this stat for Bird as a forward, small forward. 2 great stats.
Rebound.
10 rebounds.
Wow.
Phenomenal for a small forward. Right?
And then there's also intangibles that people don't always quantify.
Yeah.
Like
IQ.
Yeah, or like, you know, big game shots.
Yeah,
you know,
his passing too.
Big game plays, you know, passing in big moments. Because there are a lot of players that have been stat stuffers. They get great stats in games that don't mean anything.
Here's another amazing stat from Larry Bird. Because he took a ton of high percentage shots. Look at his field goal percentage. 0.514. That's amazing.
He shot a lot of threes too.
Yep.
And he averaged 24.3 points a game. I remember, I think he had the scoring title at 29.9. No, he didn't have the scoring title. Did he have the scoring title in 1987?
No, I don't think so. Jordan.
I think it was Jordan, right?
And Dominique.
Dominique was a monster. Let's look at Dominique's stats. He was a monster scoring wise.
He was amazing.
I still can't believe that guy didn't make top 50. Remember when they had the top 50? He didn't make it? Man, that was blasphemy. He carried Atlanta for like.
I don't like what they did though in this past All-Star game.
What did they do? Because I didn't even watch it.
Top 75. That's too many. Come on, 75.
Yeah, because it's been 25 years, Joe, since they did the top 50 list. So
I don't like it.
But Beast, what I didn't like is they took off some people who made it to the top 50. They should have just added another 25.
Who did they take off?
No, they took off some people that were originally there.
What, like Artis Gilmore and stuff?
Artis Gilmore. Hey, he was good, by the way.
I didn't know that.
Wasn't he in the top 50?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. I thought Damian Lillard was a bit too early. No, how did he make it? He hasn't won anything.
Well, Dominique never won anything either. So.
Let's
Yeah,
look
but
at
that argument.
yeah, all right, yeah.
most
okay.
points
All right,
scored. It's in NBA history. It's still Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, but let me see how
Kareem.
close.
Oh, Mike, I was told that LeBron passed him.
No, not yet.
No,
I
not
don't
yet.
know if he even will pass him.
Karl Malone, I think, is at number 2, isn't he?
Yeah. Finally got him.
LeBron James is number 3. Will he catch? He should catch Karl Malone.
Yeah, he will.
So here's the thing. Let's do the statistics. How many points has LeBron averaged a year, a season? What's his average?
Maybe 24, 25?
No, more than that. More than that.
Okay.
This year he's averaging 28.9 points a game. That's a lot.
Oh, really? Wow. But they don't play defense though, like these days. Like,
Oh, come on. Stop making excuses. There's so many LeBron haters out there.
I'm probably one of them. It's what did I call it? Stat padding? Stat padding?
Yeah. Thing I like about LeBron too, as a power forward, he's like small forward too.
Small forward.
Look at Larry Bird, averaged more rebounds than him.
But Larry Bird was 6'11" or 6'10" though.
6'9", same height. 6'9", same height.
Okay.
How tall is LeBron? Is he 6'9" or 6'8"?
I think he's 6'8".
6'9". He's 6'9".
No, okay.
250.
Yeah.
18 years. So let's look at his stats. Okay, so let's look at his what's he averaging a season? I'm gonna have to look at it this way.
LeBron is definitely a better athlete than Larry Bird, but
Look at LeBron's. Look at Dominique Wilkins' statistics.
He wasn't very good defensively though. He was definitely very good offensively.
Well, he averaged 1.3 steals a game, right?
That's pretty good.
0.13. Well, here's a turnovers. 2.5 turnovers. That's not a good stat right there. Turnovers.
Yeah, and he's not even a point guard.
I don't like that.
But
stat,
he
right?
was good offensively though. Like, man, that guy was he could get you buckets. They just drafted badly, Atlanta. They didn't really draft well after drafting Dominique, because he only really had Kevin Willis and he wasn't. He was okay.
So here's very comparable scoring statistic. 24.8 for Dominique Wilkins, right?
Wow.
Free throw percentage 0.811. That's good.
Yeah, he was good.
Here's the field goal percentage 0.478. He took a lot
That's
of crazy.
good.
It's okay.
Good.
It's okay, man. He took a lot of shots though.
47% is good, man.
I want to see Kobe Bryant's field goal percentage.
It would be around 44, 45, I think.
He got criticized for taking a lot of bad shots.
Yeah, he did. He did. I was one of them.
You're a Kobe hater too.
I was more of a Shaq fan. I kept thinking, dude, you got Shaq there, the most dominant center in the world. Pass it to him. Why take that freaking?
Oh no, he put 0.482, so that's not bad.
Okay, that's not bad.
Solid free throws, 0.837. I was so sad when he passed away, man. I was very
I was too.
I was very, very sad. I liked him as a person too. He was cool, man. He had a really good positive way about him. He was just a nice guy, man. It seemed to me.
Yeah. I do think sometimes after his death, his legendary, like, because before his death, and when everyone talked about the top. He wasn't even in people's top 10.
Yes,
Like,
he
all time.
was. They were always debating, but him and LeBron.
And then after he died, he's like number 3, number 4 now. So what the hell? How did that happen?
Oh, you think he went down after he passed away?
No. When he passed away, he became like, instead of being like number 11 or number 12, he's now like number 4, number 5. I was thinking, how'd that happen?
Okay, so LeBron's averaging 27.1 points a game right now, right?
Yes.
Career-wise. His field goal percentage is incredible.
Yeah, it's
.544. That's incredible.
Fuck, man, that's same as Shaq.
Here's surprising. His free throws are .734. I didn't think he was. That's not bad, but I thought he was a better free throw shooter. Rebounds 7.5. It's not bad. Here's a great statistic right here for him. This is his most impressive statistic.
Assists
as a power forward. Excuse me, not power forward. As a small forward, 7.4 assists.
Yeah, that is.
He's arguably one of the. I'll tell you who my favorite passes are of all time. Magic Johnson, Isaiah Thomas, John Stockton,
Yep,
Larry Bird, and LeBron's number 5 best passes of all time.
Yeah. What about
Is that
Kuzi, man? What about Kuzi?
I don't like Kuzi.
He started the Showtime. He was the one that.
I didn't like his game. I didn't like his game.
You're from Boston, dude.
I got Maestro back in there. I didn't know you even dropped off.
No, trying to get your attention. I had to take a call, Joe. And,
I'm sorry. I
no, it's
apologize.
cool. No, I'm the one who left.
Look at Mad Chad Sports. What's the deal, man?
Hey, good morning, fellas. Enjoying the conversations. And when you guys start chopping it up about basketball, I just love the game.
That's a Boston accent right there.
No, that's a Maine accent.
Maine, yes, sir. Portland, Maine. I'm a big, boxing fan, sports fan, but my 2 favorite sports of all time is boxing and basketball. I just love the game. I appreciate it. I've been a fanatic as long as I can remember. And I just wanted to just chime in and just, sit back and listen, be on the panel and give you my takes on some of my favorite players.
Right.
And
drop some NBA knowledge because Little Penny is he's got a lot of knowledge. Let me see how you compare.
Yeah, Penny. You look at Penny Hardaway and Shaq, hypothetical situations. You can always look at what could have been. If Penny and Shaq stayed together and Penny never got hurt, you could be looking at maybe 2 of the greatest. Penny could have been the Michael Jordan or the Kobe, and who knows how many titles that young Orlando team could have won. But I'm a big Celtics fan. I believe the '86 Celtics was the greatest team ever assembled. When you have Bill Walton as your 6th man, although they could shoot it from the outside. They had Frankenstein McHale that would play on a fractured foot. You just had Larry Bird, the hick from Fritz Lick. Indiana State took them to the national championship against Magic Johnson, Michigan State. It was a David and Goliath type thing. And, Bird and Magic, all these players of today got to thank those 2 because they gave that game a big kick. They took it to the level that these players are getting paid today. And I just love the game. It's evolved so much from Steph Curry. I think this guy has changed the game like no other player, maybe like since Wilt Chamberlain, where, everybody wants to be Curry. It's a beautiful thing how much the game evolves. It's hard for me, but I enjoy it. I still enjoy it. Talking about great passes, I'm right with you, Joe. You took every one of my favorite 5. But when I see this Lonzo Ball, that little ball kid play, he's got eyes in his ears. He's got a good feel for the game. He can pass it like a magic. I'm not saying he's at that level, but I love seeing those nice passes. I remember the white chocolate, Jason Williams. That kid was flashy and fun to watch, man. He had the elbow pass. That was just some fun stuff back in the day. But I just want to thank you guys again, man, sitting back and talking this basketball. I totally love it. I think the Warriors are going to win it this year. I think with Klay Thompson back, the Splash Brothers, the back will get you there. They space the floor like no other team. I'm big on the Celtics right now, Joe. They're the hottest team in the NBA. Robert Williams, give me Robert Williams all day. The Time Lord. He sees the game. He's a chess player. He averages over 2 blocks a game. He changes the game. Yes, he can't shoot it from the outside, but the Celtics are a team to keep an eye on. I'm gonna kick back and just listen to you guys right now. But thanks, Joe. Thanks, Maestro. Thanks, Penny, and everybody in the chat, Joe. Thanks a
no
lot for your
problem,
content. I enjoy your conversations, Maestro. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Chad. I got a name that I haven't heard mentioned in terms of great passers, and to me, he's one of the best big men ever to play the game, and one of the best big men passers, and that was
Tim
Arvydas.
Duncan.
No, Arvydas Sabonis, the
Oh, yeah.
Lithuanian who came over to the league late in his career because at the time Lithuania was part of the Soviet Union. But even late in his career, we saw glimpses of his like amazing abilities as a basketball player. This is a guy who was, what was he, 7'2", Penny, who could stroke it from behind the arc and who had some amazing passing ability too. Shit, that's my doorbell. I got to be right back.
Listen to this, Penny. So LeBron's number 3 right now in most points scored, right? So he averages 27 points a game, right?
Yep.
So if he plays 2 more seasons scoring at the pace he's scoring at, he'll pass Kareem in 2 years.
Yeah. Good luck to him.
You think he could do it?
Yeah, probably. He said he'll play until his son enters the NBA draft, and wherever he's going, whoever drafts him, that's where LeBron will go. I think he's constructing his contract where when his son enters the draft, he'll be a free agent. So wherever his
When's his son entering the draft?
I don't know. I think his son's still in high school. I think he's a senior, but I don't know if he's going to go to college or not.
They showed him doing they showed him at a dunk contest. It was insane. His son did a crazy dunk. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Just not 6'7", 6'8", 6'9" like LeBron. You know, he is smaller.
LeBron's
going to be able to play for a long time past his peak because of his physical dominance. I see him play live. I've never seen a man that size move so fast, that powerful. Pass a ball. You're talking about on a rope. He passes that ball on a frozen rope, and it's right in the pocket. His IQ he controls distance, pace, and he sticks out. I seen him play 3 times. Every time he is the most dominant player by far. You just say, one of these things does not belong here. One of these things is not the same. And the longevity of his excellence is unparalleled in sports. And people take him for granted. But that longevity, like they're saying, playing with his son, unbelievable. Shout out to LeBron James.
But Mad Chad, but isn't some of his legacy like the way he can average, like, as Joe was saying, 27 points in his 18th year or whatever, is because the league is not as physical as it was like in the 80s and 90s. Like if he played in those era, he'll probably be retired by now.
So LeBron James' son is 17 years old right now, and he's listed at 6'2", 180 pounds. When he's 21, you think he'll be about 6'5"?
Yeah.
Probably 210.
Yeah, 6'5", 6'6" maybe.
You think he'll grow to 6'6"?
I think Jordan was around that height, I think, when he was 17.
Let me see Jordan's. I'm going to Google Jordan's height.
And then he grew like 3 inches from his freshman year to his sophomore year.
His son doesn't have the frame. When you see LeBron in high school there, he had that big frame, the big show. You know, he just looked like he was going to fill out. His son's just more petite, maybe more like the mom. You know, I see him, you know, who knows? He might just stop growing. But, you know, it's he's not going to have that physical dominant being as his dad. And, you know, hey, those are tough shoes to follow. And if LeBron's going to be playing with him, God bless that, man, because that would be a beautiful thing to see. Who wouldn't dream of doing that, you know? And But that's got to be a hard task to go. I think he's a top 50 high school player. He's a top 50 high school player right now ranked.
Here's an amazing statistic. This is so bizarre. When Jordan was 15 years old, he was 5'10". When I was 15 years old, I was 5'10" as well.
Oh,
now I grew. I'm like 6 feet 1/2 inch tall right now. Right at my peak, I was 6'1". So I only grew 3 more inches at 15 years old. Right? Jordan grew 8 inches. Isn't that amazing? How he just kept growing and I didn't.
And Joe, none of his family are over 6 feet. He's the only one that's over 6 feet. How did he do that?
One of his brothers is like 5 foot what? Something?
5'9".
Something
Like,
like that.
Beebs, his father and mother, right? They're not over 6 feet. So how did he get over? How did he grow to 6'6"? Like maybe the mother was on the side. Like I don't know, who knows, man? Because he doesn't even look like his father. Have you noticed that?
I thought he looked like his old man. I thought that I could see him, the old man. And who knows? One of the grandfathers is 7 feet tall. A lot of that is in the passes down a couple generations, and who knows? But like you say, I think Anthony Davis, for the Lakers there, he grew a lot because he was a point guard, I believe, in high school and went through a massive growth spurt. Like you say, Joe, imagine if you could have tacked on 8 inches, you'd probably been in the league,
I would have loved to have been 6'6". Even if I was 6'6", I wonder I would be able to have done.
Joe, you could have been
Same
Keith Van
here,
Horn.
Joe.
Man. Joe, you could have been Keith Van Horn.
Oh
Yeah.
man.
I got
got
bad knees and bad feet though. I probably would have.
So does Van Horn.
I would have fizzled out.
Oh, I just came back. Well, I just got a package courtesy of Beeb Industries via FedEx. Okay.
What you get?
Beeb's upgraded my phone to the new 5G system. Thank you, Beeb. Beeb Industries sent me that care package. I've been hesitant about 5G because I was reading a lot of stuff about it that may not be safe. But
my brother got 5G. He got an older phone. He got a lower quality phone than me. But see, I have this Note 10 Plus.
Yeah.
And I've had this for a little while now, and I had a screen replaced, I think, once through my insurance because it just kind of died on me. It didn't die, but it kind of like burned in a little bit.
Yeah.
But the thing is this phone just has a great shelf life, but it's only 4G capable.
Yeah, I mean, I was seeing videos. My brother Al from the UK, from East London, he was sending me stuff about like trees dying near like 5G towers, and birds like falling out of the sky, and there's been a lot of like hesitancy about a 5G in different parts.
I wonder why.
Huh?
I wonder why that is.
Well, it uses different kind of signals, right? All of these things run.
But you would think it would be comparable, no?
Well, I mean, people just think that the 5G signals are like dangerous for the human brain and trees and birds and other animals. I don't know.
Such a high frequency, like a microwave.
Yeah, and that people are saying that it was like rushed to approval, and like obviously the corporations that control outlets like the New York Times, because the New York Times ran a story saying that this is all like conspiracy theory bullshit. But then when you look at who sells advertising in the New York Times, it's all of the wireless providers. So are they really impartial about this? I don't know, but Maestro is now upgrading to 5G, courtesy of Mr. Joe Habib. So Beeb Industries encouraged.
Let me ask you this question.
If I get cancer, Joe,
you won't get cancer. Let me ask you this question. I just saw this story I found on the internet right now, and it's coming out of Amir Khan's camp.
Yeah,
Amir Khan was jet lagged for Kell Brook fight as rematch clause deadline approaches.
Bam, I was about to ask you about this, but we were talking about basketball, which is a great global game, so I didn't want to switch.
Where was he coming from that he was jet lagged? Doesn't he live in the UK?
He was training at high altitude in Colorado Springs. It was the first time he trained at high altitude, to my knowledge. I don't know if this had anything to do with his loss. I don't think it did personally.
They said he underestimated Brook and he was jet lagged.
Well, he has 3 weeks to start with the note to enforce the non-compete. What am I talking about? The rematch clause. So, maybe he wants a rematch, and maybe this is going to be part of trying to sell that fight.
Can't sell that rematch though, can you?
Well, maybe he's trying to sell the fight by coming up with these reasons why he lost. I don't know.
It's crazy.
Why else would you be bringing this stuff up if you weren't trying to get a rematch?
Also, Maestro Beebs, he also injured his right hand, because I don't know if you saw the post-fight.
I saw it. Yeah.
He was clutching his right hand.
I saw
Yeah,
it.
as if he
I don't know
like
how
he
we
injured
didn't really land much of note.
it. Yeah.
Someone in the chat saying LeBron is obviously on HGH or some other stuff, and he'll get his son on before his growth plates shut.
Come on, bro. You got
Hey,
to
listen,
evidence to make accusations like
listen.
that. LeBron is one of the hardest working guys that takes care of his body in the offseason.
Yeah, true.
How much money does he spend on his training and his body and his nutrition and
yeah, and was he on
therapy?
HGH when he was in high school and looked like a grown man, like a phenom?
Yeah.
The guy just has great genetics.
Yeah, but Maestro, he benefited from the rule change where when he came into the league wasn't as physical, so he was able to play 18 years, averaging what Joe was saying, 27 points. If he was playing in the era with Michael where he started in 1984, he wouldn't be averaging 27 points, and he wouldn't be playing 18 years either. He would be playing maybe like 15 to 16 years and averaging maybe
that
24,
may or may
23.
not be true, Penny, but I'm not responding to that. I'm talking about saying that the man's on human growth hormone.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, I don't know, but I don't think that even helps in like steroids don't help you in basketball because it doesn't help you with shooting, man. It might help you with injuries, but he's not injury prone.
Well, people are just saying believe whatever they want to believe. I mean,
My whole thing on steroids in baseball, and my whole thing in steroids in baseball, to me, baseball is more hand-eye coordination. I'm sure it's going to add strength and stuff like that, but
here's my thing: why is Barry Bonds not allowed into the Hall of Fame, but Big Papi is?
Yeah, that's not right.
I mean, Big Papi's in the Hall of Fame, but Barry Bonds isn't because of steroid use, even though the steroid use with Barry Bonds was never actually definitively proven.
Well, Barry Bonds wasn't good with the media. Big Papi is.
Well, there you go. Barry Bonds is smiling Negro with the grin from ear to ear, sucking off these reporters, and they never liked him.
Yes.
Joe, real quick, your take on this, because as a big boxing fan, and we're kind of, if I could piggyback off just what you're mentioning with the steroids, back in the day with Balco and Barry Bonds and Marion Jones, and that big worldwide, it was probably the biggest cheating conspiracy in the history of sports, and now you see Victor Conte back in action with this snack, and it seems to be every fighter, every world champion, and it just scares me because you don't see the snack product in the NFL and in Major League Baseball. It would be, cool if Steph Curry came out with a snack hat on, then it would give a little bit of legitimacy. But we all know
you don't have that kind of bank to afford a Steph Curry. That's
Here's
why
I'm just saying, though, it's just funny that he's just catered to the box and bikini world. And we all know this man's past. And I'm just so afraid he might end up seeing a boots in us like a Barry Bonds, because when the axe comes down, because I don't trust this Victor Conte. I think he's a cheat. Like I said, he brought down Barry Bonds, Marion Jones, one of, I think, the greatest athletes that the world had ever seen. She can't even have a gold medal no more because of this man. Not just because of him, but he preyed on a lot of Montgomery. He had the fastest man, the fastest woman's records ripped away. And they were world-class athletes before they ever met this man. And now all you see is snack with these athletes, and I just feel like it's going to be a bad ending.
Here's my problem.
CJ Hunter, right? CJ Hunter, the shot putter, was Marion Jones's husband, and
and Montgomery was too, I believe, and then the tracks,
the one who pushed her in all of this shit. Because by the way, she was, speaking of basketball, she was an amazing basketball player too.
Yes, absolutely, phenom basketball player.
Here's my problem. Here's my problem with the whole Barry Bonds situation, right? First of all, if he never got caught, he'd still be doing it. So this whole thing of him taking the moral high ground now is ridiculous. The reason why he is where he is because none of these other sports will take him. That's number one. Number two, boxing is such a niche sport that he can find his way in. And now he's trying to down and degrade all PED and PED users because for one reason and one reason only, he wants to sell the supplements in place of the PEDs. A lot of his supplements do the same, if not similar things than the PEDs do. And a lot of these stimulants and these drugs that are banned substances some of these other things that he puts in his supplements are just as effective, if not more effective. Like when you stack caffeine, citrulline malate, tyrosine, and some of these other stimulatory substances that he puts in his supplements, you get the similar effect that you're going to get. Like that whole thing about the phentermine thing, he totally exaggerated the effectiveness of that phentermine. Phentermine is not a PED. It definitely helps you lose weight, but the major component of and property of the phentermine is just it's a very immensely strong appetite suppressant. No one's going to sit there and take phentermine and say, hey, I can win the marathon now because I took phentermine. It's a bunch of bullshit. He was really going over the top with that. Like he makes exaggerated claims about some of these substances that are on the banned substance list, and he tries to make them sound more beneficial than they are.
Well, can I jump in on that, Joe?
Sure.
Because I have a couple issues. Number one, I've always been confused about where the line between performance enhancing substance starts and supplement ends. So that's number one. Number two, it was like the height of hypocrisy for me for Caleb Plant to be talking about Canelo being a cheat because he was on clenbuterol. Meanwhile, he's being sponsored by Victor Conte and wearing his shirts
in a hyper chamber with Victor Conte, right?
Yeah, and endorsing his products and being in like videos endorsing Snack and Victor Conte. I mean, is that not a little bit hypocritical?
It's more than a little bit hypocritical. The only reason why Conte's doing what he's doing right now is he's trying to enhance himself and his brand and sell more supplements. That's his major goal. He could give two fucks about people using PEDs. He could give two fucks about the safety of the sport. This is all just economics.
But then the other thing,
and then he comes off as being a scientist. Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt. He comes off as being a scientist. He's a fucking bass player from a group.
Tower of power.
Tower of power. And the other thing now is like he's also trying to influence boxing journalism because he's
big time. Steve Kim writes about him all the time.
He's got a major writer on his payroll writing on his website. So I mean,
so he is where he is because obviously he wants to make money, right? And no other sport will accept him.
And also, he can't afford the endorsements of people of an NBA superstar. Like he's got people like I never even heard of this lady, Brianna Martinez. I only know about her because she's
a fitness enthusiast. Yeah. She's like a fitness model.
There you go. But I mean, she was endorsing his products in like half of the. I forget what channel it was. Was it Fight Hub TV at the beginning or whatever?
I basically make my own stuff. I stack my own stuff together. I don't like buying supplements like that are already pre-dosed. I like doing my own thing, like because I take like caffeine and citrulline malate, but I like playing around with the doses. I like keeping my caffeine at about 200 milligrams. Anything more than that, I get too jittery and I can't sleep. I like putting my own stacks. I take berberine. I make my own stuff because I like to combine my own things to see how my body reacts to it. Because when you take these other stuff and then you have these supplements that are have propriety blend in them, you don't know what's what. You don't know how much of what's in what. Like when you have all these lists of supplements and it says 1,500 milligrams for propriety blend, I never buy anything like that.
And then you get into trouble like Billy Joe Saunders did in your neck of the woods, Joe, before the fight. Right. Yeah. He's taking this. It was in a pre, it was in a formulaic shake or whatever he was taking. Dillian Whyte used the same justification for testing a certain way. It's like, especially, and you're doing that, or you're not an elite athlete with all due respect. Like, so why should these guys be doing it?
Yeah. Yeah. And that banned substance list is growing exponentially year after year, and they just throw things on there. And I think some of the stuff that is on there, I question the effectiveness and the performance enhancing properties of these things. And here's the thing too: you go to a doctor and you're injured, and he prescribes you with certain medication to help you recover. Some of that stuff, you get a medical exemption for that. But again, it's on the banned substance list still. You know what I mean? So, and then you had the whole thing with the meldonium, how they kind of went, they backtracked on that, and then first it was banned, and then they said, oh, you can have a certain amount in your system. Who determines how much is effective and how much is not effective? You know what I mean? So I don't even think they do enough research on some of this stuff to have like the whole thing with meldonium. They seem to not do much research at all on it, and only recently, up until that point, was it put on the banned substance list. You know, and then they changed it. Oh, well, you can have a certain amount, or you could take a certain amount up to a specific date. They just dropped the whole ball on that. So I think they need to do more research on a lot of these substances to really know how effective and how dangerous they are. And a lot of the times there's things on the list that are illegal, like diuretics, because not necessarily because they're a performance enhancer, but because they're dangerous. And I even said this whole phentermine thing with Oscar Valdez. First of all, you're already calorie depleted, right? And you're already training hard. And then you're taking another substance that's gonna suppress your appetite even more. So are you really doing yourself a benefit? I mean, yeah, you'll make weight, but I even said I even said this, and you can go back and look on video. I thought the phentermine actually would hamper his performance, and I think it ultimately did. I think I had the fight scored 6-6 in rounds. A lot of people thought that he lost the fight. If the point wasn't taken away, then it would have been a draw on my scorecard. And you can question whether or not he won that fight or not. I think it was a split decision, right? So did the phentermine really help him in retrospect? It actually hampered him, which I predicted that it could very well do, and I thought it would. So I don't know. But just Victor Conti coming out and talking about that drug as if it was like some type of wonder drug. I just wasn't buying it. And the only reason why he did that, the only reason why he did that, I'm not saying it shouldn't be on the banned substance list.
Right.
But the claims that were made about this drug were ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a weight loss drug that they give to people who are obese. It's not designed for people to be a better athlete. There's not guys at the gym. If someone's at the gym or someone wants to like more people are going to take stuff like clenbuterol. They're going to take more highly effective substances as opposed to phentermine. I just didn't buy that whole thing with Conti.
Well, thanks, Joe, for kind of answering that. Because it just kind of I just find it so appalling when these fighters call out other fighters when they're part of the snack program, because if they only knew this man's history, I think they'd think twice. But this is all about cash is king in this game, and everybody's looking for a leg up. I mean, if you're looking for someone that's probably going to give you the best, gas, probably Victor's the man to hang with,
Yeah. And once again, you could, a friend of mine, D-Style, said one thing to me, and he made perfect sense. He goes, so, you have issues about PEDs in the sport of boxing, but aren't supplements PEDs too? Aren't some of his supplements, wouldn't you classify his supplements as PEDs? Aren't they designed to increase athletic performance as well too? So what makes them legal and the other stuff illegal? So that's the fine line you have.
Oh, it's such a fine line, right? And they're looking to push the envelope, and just crazy stuff. Crazy. It's just crazy to think it's the only sport that he can survive in today. And it just seems that he's everywhere. Before I get on a channel, you see the snack shirts, and it seems to be everywhere. Every time I watch a fight, you see a snack athlete. And he just signed Benavidez, Big Baby Anderson, Boots Ennis, Devin Haney. The list goes. Caleb Plant. He's just got a lot of Shakur Stevenson, Bud Crawford. Just crazy to think that this man is right back at it at the top of the game when it comes to supplements and performance enhancing. He's at the top of the game again. And I just see a bad ending eventually, the outcome of this. And, I just would, but it's just the world in general. The world's a crazy, crazy place we live, man. And, basketball, March Madness coming up and all this. I'm pumped up about everything, fellas. Did you guys both play basketball? Did you guys both play yourselves?
I didn't play at a high level. I didn't play at a high level.
Yeah, same here. I didn't. I didn't.
But
Either.
I actually I like basketball. I do like basketball a lot.
I played through high school.
There's so many other substances out there like yohimbine, citrus aurantium. There's a lot of stuff that has highly stimulatory effects, and there's so much stuff you can buy over the counter that you could argue is more of a stimulant than phentermine, but they're not on the banned substance list.
Crazy.
So it's crazy how certain things are allowed and certain things aren't. And what it all comes down to is just politics. It comes down to politics and money, really. Because this stuff is part of the pharmaceutical companies and the supplements aren't, then obviously they're not going to be banned. So it's a lot of it's political.
Guns, wars, pharmaceuticals, all big money. They're big business.
Guns, wars, pharmaceuticals,
oil,
fossil fuels. Yeah, I was just about to say that. And obviously insurance, the biggest scam running.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm convinced I've switched my stance about a year ago on universal health care because I don't think it's an issue of the care itself. I just don't like the insurance payer system. I hate dealing with these insurance companies and arguing with them on what's covered and what's not covered and all this other bullshit because they're not there to help me. They're there to give me the least amount of benefit possible because it's less money they have to shell out.
Bro, I was taking
gross.
I was taking a daily medication prescribed by a doctor, and then out of nowhere, the insurance company just decides that they're no longer covering it, right? That they're only covering it at up to a certain dose.
That's what I got. Yeah, I have some stuff that I was taking.
I mean, even my pharmacist was like, "What the hell is this? Like, you need this medication." I'm like, "I know." So luckily, the pharmacist, what they did was they divided the dose in two, right, and gave me. I needed four. I think it was 450 at the time milligrams. So what they did was they cut it between 300 and 150 and put it in as two separate things. But I mean, those are the games that these gangsters play on us.
Oh, it's horrible.
It's crazy.
It's horrible. So who do we got today, man? We got Catterall. I'm gonna say Josh Taylor by decision. Does he knock him out? You guys think he knocks him out?
That's the proposition that I don't know about, man. Because Josh Taylor can knock people out. There's no doubt about that.
I'm gonna recommend the stoppage proposition.
Yeah, my issue with Catterall is he's a very good fighter. There's no doubt about that. If you just watch him and see what he's done in the ring and know about his background, you know that. Plus, you hear guys like Frampton talking about him and what he's done. People that have trained with him, he's sparred people all over the world at a very high level. But this is a new level. This is a bigger stage. This is a different kind of proposition in terms of an opponent. And because of that and the experience of Taylor fighting at this elite level, you got to favor Taylor. But yeah, to me, the question, Joe, is whether Catterall goes the distance or not. I mean, I haven't seen him hurt in a fight. So, I don't know. It's an enigma. We don't have enough data at least I don't, to pick a knockout or a unanimous decision.
Yeah, we haven't seen him in a big fight, so we don't know if he can rise to the
I'm seeing Taylor by unanimous decision. I think he'll dominate. I think Catterall will have his moments, and all tough as nails kid, like you say, there's a lot of unknown questions here. I think it'll be a fun fight, but I think Taylor's gonna, his class, just his experience will be the overlaying factor to this fight.
There you go.
Yeah. All right, guys. I'm gonna
jump off too.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump off. I'm gonna blast off. But thank you, guys, man. It was a pleasure, and I'll see you soon, man. Make sure you watch the.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Maestro.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. I'll catch you later, man. Be good.
Take care, Joe.